That's my line. What are you doing? Okay, so we are live.
We are.
We think. We can hear ourselves. It's 6:12 in the region. Chuck Pullen, Summer of Chuck 2, the Electric Boogaloo, Summer of Bob, Summer of Joe. So Joe, we're going to talk about this because we're not going to let him up off the mat. Joe has committed one of the cardinal sins of doing morning radio, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit. But we do have some major traffic if you're heading into the city. So everything in the region looking good, 80, 94, 65, everything looking good here in the region. Everything looking pretty good out in Illinois, 294, all that stuff. But there was an earlier accident on the northbound Dan Ryan, which is actually, I think, the westbound Dan Ryan. So northbound Dan Ryan at 71st, which is right about the Skyway. So there was an accident that was blocking the three right lanes of the Dan Ryan at 71st, which is backing things up all the way onto Bishop Ford. I'm going to do a watch the Bishop Ford. I've not gotten to put one of those out. So watch the Bishop Ford at this point. The accident is before the Skyway. So if you are heading that way, I'm thinking now would be a good day to pay the ransom, take the Skyway. You'll avoid all this traffic because it's 6 o'clock and I'm already seeing red all the way down the Dan Ryan, all the way down the Bishop Ford. So this is probably a good day if you haven't gone that way already to avoid the Dan Ryan, the Bishop Ford. But I will keep an eye on that and I will let you know. But as of now, this was an hour ago, there was a crash that was blocking the why is it so hard? I didn't have enough coffee. The three right lanes of the Dan Ryan at approximately 71st. So that's going to be a big mess for the morning commute if you're heading downtown. Joe, how's the weather?
The weather isn't looking too much better than the traffic. It's going to be a nice.
Now turn yourself up. Everybody says that Joe is low, so you got to turn yourself up and you got to push from your diaphragm.
Hello.
There you go. See, that's your perfect
Hello.
radio voice.
All right.
Remember that.
So the weather isn't going to be much better today than the traffic is. It's going to be a high of 86, but we're supposed to get some thunderstorms later in the afternoon. It's going to roll into Tuesday in the morning and in the afternoon with more thunderstorms on Tuesday and a high of 83. It'll finally clear up on Wednesday, but the temperature will stay the same. Likewise on Thursday with highs of 83 on both those days. And then for the weekend, we got a high of 87, a high of 92, and a high of 89. So it sounds like it's going to be a pretty nice weekend for everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joe.
You know what? Everybody has something to do in the mornings. Chuck does traffic. You do weather. I've got nothing.
You do. You get to interrupt everybody. I'm about to introduce you, and then you interrupt.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that voice you hear interrupting and disrupting our flow, that's Bob Starkey. So that's your thing. You're just like in the middle, just start talking.
Just randomly start talking. I was going to start talking about astrology or something like that.
That would be
like after
cool.
Weather, like, hey, Sagittarius today, don't.
Mars is
bring
in
the umbrella. Mars is in Gatorade.
Mars is in Gatorade, so don't. What do you do? Like,
don't make big decisions after 12.
Don't spend money in odd numbers or something like that. Don't set your alarm for odd numbers.
I'll think we've got Chuck. You and I, we've got a couple more weeks of this. I'll think of something.
Hopefully. But we'll see. I mean, you could always do just like random historical facts. I know you like to look that stuff up.
The one day I don't have anything
there you go. You're not
ready for you.
Okay, so Joe, let's talk about this. We're going to admonish you on the air for this.
All right.
So what happened, Joe? Why are we late?
Bad Joe.
Because I set my alarm for 5:45 instead of 4:45.
Okay.
And I've been all over the place this morning.
Emotionally or
it's like an emotional roller coaster for you?
For both, honestly.
Okay.
I thought I was going to get pulled over like 3 times. There were so many cops out on the road. And, I mean, I think my car is still on.
It looks like it's still on.
It looks like it's
we'll
still
take
on.
a break here in a minute. And you can go turn it off.
So, yeah, I've definitely been all over the place. I'm usually I have a pretty – it takes me a lot of time to get ready in the morning, as in just like –
What?
You
are a guy.
I know.
What do you need to do? You need to do your hair?
I
More
need
importantly,
to use the
we have
bathroom.
seen you.
Yeah, I know. I don't show up with my hair done. It just I have a bunch of underlying stomach issues that I've been dealing with since my junior year of high school. Where did the camera go?
You went that way.
And I've been dealing with them for a while, and they used to be a lot worse, but I kind of have something where I have to use the bathroom a lot, and it's basically part of my morning routine. So if I do not get up before and use the bathroom, then I'll be cranky and in pain all day. from my stomach, which is probably going to happen unless I do this during the break.
Do you drink coffee yet?
I
Try
occasionally
it. Try drinking coffee and see how that. Especially throw an espresso shot in there. See what happens.
Well, that's the problem. Is I'm afraid because if I'm the only one in the producer's booth, and then I'm in the bathroom.
You just have a sign. You just put up a sign. Be back in 5 minutes, just like at the convenience store.
If it took 5 minutes, it would be less of a problem.
Okay. Okay. That's valid. I thought you were just being an irresponsible kid, but okay. So valid.
Yeah. Now
valid.
how do you
feel bad.
All that stuff you were saying out there.
I get it.
Very
I
irresponsible
was sticking up
of
for
me.
you.
It's very irresponsible of me to set my alarm for 5:45. You're right.
As I said, you have to
because
create
I need to have
alarms. This is
reoccurring alarm.
20 whatever it is.
I know.
Set on like I have Monday alarms. I have Tuesday alarms. I have like 20 alarms in my phone because I don't,
Well, what I used to do is I had alarms set for Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Thursday, because that's what I was working. And then once I took the Thursday day away, I kind of just stopped using it altogether, and now it's come back to bite me in the butt. So,
okay. Well, like I said, everybody gets one, and then
Everybody
if you do it again, like on Wednesday or something,
oh yeah,
I'm going to hear about it. So
it definitely wouldn't be a good look twice in 1 week too.
Okay. What do you want? Do you want to? Why don't we do this? Do you need to take a break then? Why don't we? Okay. Well, why don't we run till 6:30 then? So here's what we've got. We've got
a big show.
We got a lot. But I want to get through. There's some sad news that we want to get through, and then so what we've got is I invited our old buddy Chris Harden, I brought him on the show a couple months ago, and he did a video. He did several videos. He did one about Hammond. He did one about Crown Point. Nothing on Dyer yet, so maybe you can ask him when the Dyer video comes. But so Chris has been in town this weekend, working on his new series about Gary. And so when he reached out to me a month or so ago, he said, "Hey, I'm going to be here. I want to go to Gary." I said, "Chris, I think you do a good job of this. So I want to put you in touch with some people so that we can make sure that you get the story straight. Hear it right from the people that live in Gary, work in Gary, run Gary. So I want you to talk to them instead of just coming to town and, basically doing a video at the abandoned church and going, hey, here's Gary." So Chris has been in town all weekend, went to the air shows, talking to lots of people. So we're going to have Chris in later. But before then, Larry the K is due to come in here in a few minutes. We're going to talk about the passing of a friend of ours, a friend of the station. I'll just put it out now. So our old buddy George Vincent, as you would know him, Big George the car guy, was on with Preacher for many years, was on with Larry the K, did his Saturday show pretty much forever here on WJOB, and then when WJOB kind of changed things up a little bit, he went to another station, and so I helped him quite a bit. It's crazy how quickly time flies. It seems like just yesterday I was helping him set up a studio in his second bedroom, basically his back bedroom, and did his Big George the car guy show from there. So we're going to talk to Larry's going to bring some clips in. We're going to talk about George here in a little bit. Another sad story I wanted to talk about before we go to break. So there was St. John detective Aaron Ampmeyer. I think he worked in Dyer at some point. He worked in Gary. He passed away unexpectedly on Saturday. I was trying to remember. I think I knew him from high school, so he's about the same age as I am. And so right now, if you feel so inclined, the St. John Police Department has his car out in front of their, basically right in front of the municipal building, and that's a nice thing that they're doing for him. And so there's also like a GoFundMe for his family and things like that. But again, it's I posted this on my Facebook the other day, Bob. It's strange when you get to that point in life where people your age and younger are passing away. People several people I've gone to high school with have passed away unexpectedly. People like Aaron Ampmeyer, very good shape. He was on the NWR SWAT team.
Right.
Who was playing hockey at the time. He had a medical emergency while playing hockey. It's such a strange thing. And again, has a family, things like that. It's just such a sad thing. And it was weird because I was actually just on the phone working on my life insurance and stuff like that. And I told him, I said, you know what? It's like it's like you plan for like a long life, but it's like, let's be realistic. Like that doesn't happen for everybody. Doesn't get to live to 100. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's
right, and that sad, a tragedy. I don't know, what the reasons were. had heard it's social media, but I had heard it's possibly some type of cardiac issue. I got my first pacemaker defibrillator when I was 39.
Okay.
I'm on my second one already.
Okay.
And so things like you said, that at that age now where mortality starts to creep up in odd and random places, and it's it really does make you take pause, especially when I know he had a young kid. We've got kids that.
So I think you his are you about his age too then?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
So he's actually a little bit younger than I am. So you're about So I mean again same idea, but so I guess so. How did that's interesting. I didn't know about the pacemaker. So obviously,
I don't wear a sign.
Well, I was gonna say. Well, besides, again, I have to be careful not to ever push you towards a microwave or anything like that. No MRIs or anything like that. But how did you? I mean, I guess how do you discover something like that? Was it just sort of like not feeling right and then getting some tests?
Yes. So for me, I would say it was probably more of a 5 or 6 year discovery process.
Okay.
There was one incident where I had I don't know if you'd call it passed out or blacked out or whatever it may be, but I did, which was unusual for someone in his mid 30s. They do a bunch of tests and they find out that you've got a heart issue, and at that point it was a bit of a discovery. It was we found out that it was a genetic issue. My grandfather had it. My mother, who had recently passed, she had it. I have it, and so it's just something that works through the genes, I suppose.
Well, and I come from a family where, put it this way, my father died early of a heart attack, and then I think several of his brothers and sisters have pacemakers, so everybody's always on me to keep an eye on that too. So
knock knock.
Hi, knock knock. Who's there? Yeah.
Okay, Joe. That's the weirdest way to say that we've got a caller.
Is that a caller or is it a guest? So, but anyway, no. I mean, again, and we've had, I know that Kuziak's been through something similar. Gino's just coming back from cancer treatment. So again, it's just kind of like one of those things where just, you see a lot of that in your circle, and it just makes you
the first time I ever had my it's only gone off once. That's why I have the second one. I more or less landed in the Culver's parking lot in Cherville.
Okay.
And major kudos to the Cherville Fire Department and EMS team who got to me, and they jokingly teased as soon as I got in there. They were trying to stabilize me, trying to keep me distracted from the immense pain, and I had a Dire Fire shirt on.
Okay.
At the time. They said, "Oh, you work for Dire Fire." I said, "No, I'm just on the council over there." And they paused and they said, "Well, this is what the inside of a real fire truck and ambulance looks like." And so they were attempting levity, and they did great job. They did great job.
So here's my question, because I don't know, like, when the pacemaker starts to go bad, does it start chirping like the smoke detector, or what happens?
Yeah, just a little.
You're just standing at church or something, and your heart starts chirping. You're like, what is that? Like, oh, I changed my battery. Somebody needs to give me a jump start.
Yeah, somebody gets give me.
I mean, I guess
can
they charge you with induction now? Can you lay on a cell phone charger?
No, so it's a self-contained battery. The first device will say malfunctioned.
Okay.
How about that? And
it didn't overheat or anything, did it?
No.
I worry about those batteries. I've heard stories. You get on an airplane and it's like, oh, my chest is warmed up.
The only thing that I've noticed is I can't go through a magnetometer.
Okay.
And 90% of the time, all I got to do is I got to look at the person. I just say, I got a pacemaker. And they're like, okay.
Well, you should have a card then.
I do.
I was going to say, you should have a legit card for TSA and stuff. And can you get me a copy?
Yeah,
just asking.
But it went off beyond painful. I now kind of chuckle every time I see it on TV on a medical show when folks get zapped. Half the time they're already on the floor and unconscious. You see the whole body flop, and I always say, try that when you're awake.
Ah, interesting.
And so it'll go off. It'll wait 20, 25 seconds as it checks your heart again, and then zaps you 5 times in a row.
Wow.
Zap me. Oh, I still have PTSD.
And you're awake when it happens.
That's
it. That's got to be a weird thing.
Yeah.
Right? I was listening to a show the other day here. They were talking about the AEDs and stuff like that. I think that's a great thing that we're starting to see those, especially, at sports facilities. Because again, I mean, there's been plenty of stories of young athletes having issues and stuff like that. So it's good.
Welcome
that we're
to
paying
the random
stuff
fact
like
hour of the summer.
No, again, I mean, it's one of those things where I always say there's random things that we talk about that may honestly save somebody's life. You may have put this out and talked about why, and somebody today may, I'm feeling the way Bob is. Maybe I should go get checked out. Again, I'm being a hypocrite because everybody tells me I should do the same thing. But again, it's like random stuff that you're like, I'm dealing with this thing. I don't know what it is. And then, somebody mentions it on the radio or something. You're like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to go get that checked out.
I would say if I did have any recommendation, it would be what everybody says after they've been diagnosed with something is, for God's sakes, don't put it off.
Right.
If you feel weird, if you're standing up and every time you stand up you get lightheaded, that is the blood, just rushing to your extremities. There's probably an issue with that.
Right.
I'm not a doctor, but
fair enough.
Go get it checked out.
I'm sure my wife's not listening because otherwise I'd be getting a text right now going, he's right. Okay, so let's do this. So Larry's here in the studio. We're going to take a break. We're going to reset. We're going to bring Larry in. We're going to talk for a little bit with him. And we'll be back. Joe, you ready? Let's take a break real quick. We'll be back with more after this on WJOB. Hey, it's 6:35 here in the region. Summer of Chuck 2. That cough you hear, Larry the K. Thank you for joining me.
I
That was
can't
Bob.
hear
I
a thing
tell
in these
who.
things.
Okay, turn him. What?
But I know Joe's busy.
He's
so,
working on it. We're getting in. It's some things change, some things never change.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
Okay, so I do want to hit this before we get into the segment. We do have some serious traffic concerns on the inbound Dan Ryan. If you're heading that way, there was an earlier accident. Dan Ryan before 71st. It's got things backed up the entire length of the Dan Ryan. Bishop Ford starting to build, 57 starting to build. So if you are so inclined, pay the ransom, as we say, and avoid all of that. But I'm putting out a watch the Bishop Ford unless I hear otherwise. But as of now, do a watch the Bishop Ford. Expect traffic if you're heading into the city. So Larry the K is here. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Chuck.
What did that guy say the other day? I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel. It's like that's
what we said the last time.
Yeah, no, that was a great compliment.
Or actually, one of the callers.
Yeah, one of the callers said
scraping the bottom of the barrel. You dig up Larry the K.
Yeah. So, but I
bottom of the barrel is a nice place to be, though.
Well, I was going to say, look, it's
it's where all the strong booze is.
Right.
Let's see.
It's where the thickest stuff is.
That's
okay,
right.
So, speaking of thick,
yes,
we were just talking about our medical journeys. Speaking of thick, no, but again,
three thick gentlemen every morning on WJOB.
We didn't talk about this last time you were here because I think it's your. So we were just talking about medical issues, health issues. Now we were just talking about your kind of weight loss journey, things like that. So
yeah, I was by March of 2019, I was at 406 pounds. Proud of it, and the doctor just kind of threw his hands up at me at our yearly meeting. I said nothing to say. He goes, "No, you don't listen anyway."
Right.
And by the way, we got to double your blood pressure meds. And I said, okay. So that was the first hint. June, July come around. I kind of hit bottom. I like to drink a lot. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, not a alcoholic. I can live without it.
Okay.
And live well. And just kind of hit the bottom a little bit, and I'm like, I gotta quit. I got to lose this weight. I have to, 1, stop drinking, and then 2, lose the weight. The stop drinking was the easiest. Losing the weight since then in the last 6 years has been an ongoing thing, and it's still ongoing.
Right.
Total, I lost 190 pounds, and I gained about 20 back.
Yeah. Well,
right now, so we're working on that. But
yeah,
again, I mean, get healthy.
Yeah, get healthy.
Please.
I agree with everything you're doing. As long as
thank you.
Other than the bike trails, other than that, I'm good with it.
Chuck, if you get on those bike trails, you're gonna like them, dude. I just wish you'd get with the winning team and come in for the big win here.
I was going through Munster the other day, and traffic was backed up on like Fisher Street. I'm like, why is it back up?
Yeah.
And then
did you park your car and go straight to the town hall and complain?
No.
I was on Ridge Road.
I'm going to go to the next town council meeting. No, I was on Fisher. There's a backup. We finally get up to it. There's an old man literally driving down the middle of Fisher on his bicycle, 20 feet from a bike trail. It's like I was going to get out and like just.
Well, maybe he was crossing. And
no,
just
he wasn't. He was.
How do you know?
Because I followed him for like a mile.
You had that kind of time.
No, I was yes, and I was trying to take pictures of him the entire. I was like, told my wife, get the wheel. I'm going to get out and shame this fellow.
So,
but again, anyway, I digress.
Yeah, please keep digressing.
Yes, but again, I'm just.
Meanwhile, every old man on the bike trail right now is scared of Chuck with a camera behind him.
As you should.
What's up with that?
I will bike shame you.
Yeah, bike shame.
I will bike shame you.
Coming from you, I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine that tableau.
I will create a Facebook page.
That's why I ought to.
Chuck rolling up on his Segway to some old
right.
Schwinn.
Oh no, I got one of those little scooters.
Get on the bike trail, citizen.
I should get one of those with like red and blue. Again, why is it I get pulled over for it being unsafe, but the bikes never do? I must hit
Chuck,
a guy.
you just need one of those quadriplegic wheelchairs that are controlled by your mouth. You don't even need a Segway.
I kind of want the one from South Park, but okay. Anyway,
get on the bike trail. That's terrible. Let's talk about Big George, man. That's why we're here.
But again, he's the kind of guy that, I told Joe, you got one job. Anytime I complain, you say, Chuck's a hater.
See, he is. He's always been a hater, Joe.
Okay.
Always.
But again, I feel like that lends to a healthy, long life, too.
It does. In closing, I feel much better. Yes, it is a struggle to maintain. It's much easier to be lazy, right? But the more you can get out and use your body what it's for, which is to move. As long as you can move and you're not sitting growing roots on the couch.
Well, I was using my body to clear out my basement after it flooded while I was on vacation. So.
Oh, nice.
Yes, that's
See, so you were moving. Well, that's exercise.
Well, that's what I said. We said last week. I said I was paying my dues of the vacation gods because every time you go on vacation, something goes wrong. Either your basement floods or whatever.
Yeah,
so
I get it.
But if that's the worst thing that can happen, you could complain a little bit, throw some stuff out on the the curb, and
that's
move
right.
on.
That's right.
Okay.
All right, back to Big George for sure now.
Okay.
What you got?
So let's hold calls. So let's just I'm going to put it out there right now. Callers, we're going to try to get through a segment, and then I want to take calls. So because you know how Jim does things around here. So I want to do a segment where we talk about George at 6:40. We'll do 20 minutes. We'll reset. We'll take calls. So I do want to hear if you guys have any memories of George, or I know a lot of people went to his shop and things like that. So let's start here. So Big George Vincent has passed away. He was a long-time fixture here in WJOB. He had his shop right down Ridge Road on Limited Service Automotive.
Corner of Ridge and Burnham
and Lansing. And so so he came and I don't know the history because I came in a little bit later. So he came in with the preacher, right?
So what I understand is this, because that was a little bit before I came into.
Right.
George Vincent and Stephen Glover, the preacher, knew each other. How? I don't know. I don't recall. George was a frequent guest on the Preacher's Afternoon Show and on the noon show, whenever Stephen was on. And for a while it was, catch as catch can. So George stuck with it. By the time I got to WJOB through Rick Kubik in October of 2011, George had already had his morning show, Your Car Guy.
Okay.
That's what I recall. And then right after that, it was kind of billed as a man cave morning after a while. It was George with his show, and then the Region Bass Buzz, the fishing show we had on here. So it was a nice Saturday morning programming lineup. George had a very good show. He was produced by Tim Saldana, T-Rex.
T-Rex, yep.
And every now and again, I'd come in and fill in. And just from being around the station, I got to know George. I don't even know if you want to say professionally around this place, but I got to know George well, and every now and again he would guest on Rick's show at the time, Music Underdogs. I'd produce for that, and he and I built up a rapport, an on-air rapport somehow. Time and tide goes by. The preacher sadly left us in 2012. The afternoon slot was kind of a mix and open slot for a while. We had comedian Nick Gaza on for a few months, and then it went back to a rotating host type show. Right. Every afternoon, one day Ron Harlow would have it, the next day George and I would have it. And that's where George and I really got serious. He had radio experience before, I think at the Lansing radio station, Lansing, Illinois. So he came in with some knowledge, and he showed me, hey, this is how I run it. Let's try it like this. Let's do it, and let's have fun. And it just became another afternoon talk show.
Okay.
In the end, after a few months of that, Ron Harlow gets the afternoon slot, deservedly so. And George, unknown to me, although he had talked about it, went to Jim and said, hey, I want a show, or I'd like to do an evening show 6 to 8 with Larry and I. And we'll do a left-right politics show. Well, there's my wheelhouse, and there's George's wheelhouse, so why not? and it worked out fabulously.
It
From
did.
the first show to the last. We had callers. We had our own regular callers, not the same folks that call every show. God love them. We had good stories. We had guests, really good guests from time to time. We were the only show at the time where politicians were calling us to discuss issues. They weren't doing that for Jim's show. You had to be scheduled there.
Right.
They were calling in to our show to give their bits, and we had a pretty good battle going on. I think it was a county surveyor bit. I can't even remember who it was. Bill Emerson against whoever the token Republican was at that time, and they went at it on air, on our show, and nobody on this station was doing that, and that helped. That moved us along. It gave us a good reputation. As far as you had a safe place to come and talk, nobody was going to yank on you too much, and so on. And it went well. It was great. Some people had said, or George had maintained, that we were probably the number 2 show on the station at one point in time, whatever those ratings are. I've never seen these ratings. But it was a good time. It was a good time. I got to know George professionally. He became my mechanic. I chose him for my mechanic. Always had a good time. Hey, come on over to the house, watch a football game. I remember a Super Bowl. Greg, you were Greg starred in the booth back there. You were there. I mean, it was just this. It was like a little party, and it was a good time. And it was, wow, this is good. This is good. And I wouldn't have had a lot of those experiences in radio without my buddy George.
Right.
For sure.
So George had sort of 2 radio lives. So we're going to talk about
we're going to talk about the JOB
but then also,
stuff.
So after he left WJOB, I helped him. He, I guess he built sort of a studio in his back room, back in the back room, and then we did his car show on Saturdays on a different station for a long time, almost I think about 10 years.
He was on. I was thinking about that. That was almost 10 years. He was
it's
doing
crazy
that.
when you look back at that. So for about 10 years he did that. But I mean, again, you talk about one of the things that you said with having the Super Bowl party. George was the kind of guy that he knew so many people. You know what I mean? He's like one of those people.
He knew more people than God.
And then like I went with him a year or two ago to a car show. Everybody knew him. But again, I always knew him later in life when he was the guy with the scooter and the flag on it. So everybody would see that little flag going to the car show.
Yeah.
And he was a rock star.
Yeah. Oh my God.
The parades. I mean, again, this guy would just get out of his car, get on the scooter, and then everybody just mobbed him. It's like, hey, we got to shoot some stuff.
I remember the year 2012, WJOB had a float in Pierogi Fest.
Oh wow.
The Accordion Strike Force. Yeah. Greg's dying over here. George. We had 2 trucks. I think Pat Renwick was pulling his boat.
Right.
I just remember when he fell off that boat on the cement on the 119th. Anyway, pulling the boat, and then we had like a dump truck and a flatbed behind it. So we were all on and having fun. MX was there for sure, and George and his little scooter, kind of like the guy with the horse poop, cleaner, following along, and his basket on the front was just full of candy that he'd throw out, and some little rat come in. He's probably like 20 now, being successful, but he come in and he grabbed this full handful of candy. I mean, like 2 hands, just ran off with it, and George sitting there can't do anything, going, "Oh, you little bastard, get back here!" And then somebody threw a beer in his basket for him, and he shut up. So he was good. He was good. Hey Joe, if you got a minute when you're ready, there's one thing, and I'm going to do that and introduce Greg, because Greg helped out with this. You might have to move down one if you don't mind. But if you could play the promo, it's called "Burning Issues," and this was a promo that Greg Starrett in the other room, who'll be in here soon, George and I put together to promo the show. Were you able to find it there, Joe?
I'm working on it. You got a lot of files.
Oh, okay. It's the one that says "Burning Issues."
Okay.
Control F and type "burning."
That's one way.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Bless you, sir.
All right, here we go.
There we go.
Just
I can't agree on this, Larry.
Of course you.
Let me figure it. I gotta
Okay.
pause the music on here. real
Okay.
quick.
Okay.
There we go.
Now people are wondering what that was.
Yes.
That was a little remix of your audio mixed with.
Thank you. I like it.
Okay.
It'll be on my next
You put your
12 inch.
conservative tendencies aside and just
I
agree.
can't agree on this, Larry.
Of course you can. Just try it. Just try agreeing with the left side, and everything will be fine. I promise.
75% of the people in this country can't agree
You know,
with
throw all
that.
the statistics at me you want, George. The amount of people that prefer this is so small, you're not even going to notice.
Oh, yes, I am. I'm going to notice because they make my breath
If we
stink.
just get anchovies on one half of the pizza and your pepperoni and onion on the other, I think we could both
Well, I'm not
agree.
going to agree, but okay.
How about a Diet Pepsi?
Okay.
The burning issues of our times. That's what they discuss on The Back Room with Big George and Larry the K. Weeknights from 6 to 8 on AM 1230 WJOB.
There's no way, Larry.
Okay,
There's
so-
just no
George,
way.
listen, if
Okay, so here's the funny thing, and I never told you this, but we had several discussions
Oh, boy.
about, so basically after the last election, I said, do you know, George, I think we talked about your show quite a bit.
Oh, yes, yes,
So there was talk about trying to
Yeah.
revive that
George
show.
and I had often, I think the
Yeah.
16, the 20, the 24, that we would have been perfect for some kind of podcast or some such. How close did it get?
We got close to about the point where I was going to call you in and say, let's test this out and see how, let's do some logistical, let's just see how it goes. Let's record something so at least we can, play it. And again, it's one of those things you talk about stuff.
Yep.
It's funny how life works sometimes.
Yeah. That's how it's got to be, I guess.
I mean, but even like, for me, I know, my birthday was on Wednesday, and
Yes.
George sent me this sort of, I'm just going to call it a cryptic text with a YouTube video attached.
Ugh.
I don't know. It's like one of those things. I don't know what it meant. It was just some video of a woman singing about like her relationship with her husband or something. I don't know. It's like one of those things, I don't even know if he meant to send it to me. I don't know what it was about. But I was like, and I didn't answer him because I was kind of confused. It's like one of those things. I was like, I'm going to go see George this weekend, and
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where if anything, it's don't put things off, because again he had some medical issues. He was in rehab, basically in a rehab center, and we don't really know what happened. But I mean, it's one of those things where he was doing better.
Right.
I thought things were. And the funny thing was, here's how much George loved radio. So George, in the last, 6 months to a year, he was in and out of the hospital, in and out of rehab centers. I'd go see him like at the new hospital in Crown Point. He literally would call me. He's like, just bring the gear. We're going to record a show here in my hospital. I'm like, George, I don't think they want to record a show. I'm like, okay, George, find the nurse on your
Right,
floor.
yeah,
Find
find
the
the
head
manager.
nurse. And he said, yeah, they said it was fine. And so it's like one of those things we'd always talk about it because he just loved radio so much. He said, bring the gear to the rehab center. We're going to do a show.
Jimmy Comrade at Freddy's, where George liked to haunt and was a good friend of both Freddie and Tammy. They're the owners. He and George talked every day. George would send him texts and so on and whatnot. And Jim, hey, come get me out of this place.
Right.
I think Jim actually came and picked him up. Like George left AMA. Against medical advice, and
right.
I think Jimmy didn't know what was happening. Hey, come get me here,
Well,
and take me home, man.
That's one of
that
the
was
things.
George.
George, like I said, I mean, he's one of those guys that had a lot of medical issues, but he also just hated doctors. He hated that process.
He didn't like being still.
Right. Well, he didn't like, or even that sort of like, okay, George, we're going to do a test today, and then it's like, okay, well, what happened? What did we find out? What do we have? It's like
Yep.
he hated that sort of just that slow process.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
probably the same thing. The issue he had with the government was like the wheels always.
Oh,
turn.
yeah. Well, yeah,
George is a
for
man
sure.
of action. He's like, let's get this done. Let's
Yes.
do this. Like I said, he'd call me every week. Said, bring the stuff. We're doing a show for my hospital
funny.
bed. I don't care. But again, that was, it was, his love of radio. But I don't know what, Greg. So welcome to the show, Greg.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I want to introduce Greg Starrett here.
And then which one, Joe? Bring him up too for me, please. I think you have him cranked up.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, bring him up. He's on whatever's not.
I can hear you now.
Yes, can you?
There we go.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Okay. So hi everybody. I'm George and I were friends. Met him through the Preacher. One time on the Preacher show, I was listening. I was a phone guy. I installed business phone systems, and Stu put out a thing. Hey, we're having phone trouble. Any phone guy could come out here. So I was getting off work. I went to the studio.
It must have just rained.
Yeah, it was what it was they had somehow gotten new lines or something, and Stu was trying to put the little modular ends to plug it into the board of phone lines, and he was stripping them with his teeth and crimping them, and you don't strip it, you just put it in there. So I went and fixed it while Preacher was on the air. So it's kind of awkward, and he kept kind of bringing me into the show a little bit as I'm working. And so that's how I met the Preacher. And then I met George at Preacher's first jukebox ever was up the street here at McTavern's.
Oh, yes.
And
oh, God.
We were friends with Butch and Pam, so we went to that. And, I knew Preacher from the radio. And so that's where we met Big George for the first time. And Lori, my wife, grew up in Lansing as George did. So they hit it off right away talking about old Lansing stuff. And that's how I got to know George. And this is before he was the car guy or anything. Yeah. He was pretty much Preacher's buddy. And Preacher got him in on the radio and kind of got the whole car guy thing started. So that's how I met George. And I was fortunate to get to work with him on the radio some on his car guy show. I was on every Christmas show with him when they gave away the trains with my wife, Lori. And we got to do a lot of commercials for Unlimited Service Automotive, and that was really a fun thing. We did quite a few of those.
One of the things that was always interesting to learn about George was all that kind of stuff he did, where he was Santa. I found pictures of him as an elf. I mean, he was one of those guys where he just loved, like, Christmas to him. He's like, I can't wait till Christmas, put on my elf hat. And he's one of those guys that he probably did so much. And he came from an era where he didn't post about it on Facebook, like, hey, look what I did today.
Well, right.
He probably did so much in his community that nobody will ever know about. And even, like, you'd go into his office, he's got all these keys and awards and stuff. He's like, I'm like, what are all these? It's like, I don't know. They just gave it.
They showed up.
You did something. You did. And he's like, whatever. I helped this guy, and then they gave me a thing, and I got this plaque. So he was like one of those guys. I mean, he just did so much for people, and he loved doing it, right? He just loved. He really always looked forward to going out and doing stuff in the community and going to, whenever he would. It was one of those things where his heart wanted to do things that his body wouldn't let him, right? I mean, again, he always wanted to push himself. I always knew him as the guy in the scooter. He would tell me stories about being bowling and stuff like that,
right?
In a different lifetime, but he would tell me about going to Blue Top on his scooter. I said, how'd you go to Blue Top? It's got to be 5 or 6 miles away from your house.
Right.
He's like, oh, yeah, we take the scooter to Blue Top.
Yeah.
I didn't even think the battery would last that long.
That was always a running joke. How'd you get to the store today, George?
Right.
How'd you get to Van Til's from Burnham and I took the scooter.
Like, he must have an extra battery on it or something. I don't know.
Are you serious?
But again, he was one of those guys that
he did it.
He wanted to be out there. He wanted to be among people. He wanted to see people. He was always wanting – he was always trying to – and that's probably – one of the things that we always worried about with him is always pushing himself because he wanted to do so much and see so many people. Go ahead.
That point of worry, not so much that how active he was, it's just you, the observer, the person who saw him enough. Now, I didn't live with him. He wasn't the first, second, or third guy I called to go get a beer all the time, but I saw him enough.
Right.
Talked to him enough. It's what you would see on the outside. You could see him. You could see he was ill. You could see it.
Right.
And whatever his bit was, if you wanted to ignore it, if it made him feel less, whatever, that's his. But you could see it. But he was always into having a good time.
Right.
To do right by others.
Yep.
Which was quite a dichotomy for that guy.
But it wasn't.
Once you get to know him personally, like everybody, they got their little peccadillos and things you kind of look at askance and so on. But what he did for his community, for his friends, for his family, for the guy who came in off the street I witnessed once who just needed a quick brake job.
Right.
Oh, let's get you. You can't drive like that. Let's do it right now. And he gave the guy a good deal. I mean,
yep,
right there.
Like that.
Well, and this is what I was going to say. This is probably running a shop like that was probably the worst thing for a generous guy like that, because there's probably people. He probably has a 10-page running tab behind his thing where people that owe him money they couldn't afford to. I mean, okay, just making sure I'm not the only one.
It's only a couple.
Thank God.
I
mean, in terms of like he'd give you such a good deal. It's like, hey, you need this, and this, and then by the way, I'm throwing in an oil change and all this stuff. I'm
right.
Like,
yeah.
You got to be losing money on me, and I thought it was just. I'm like, no, it's probably everybody because he just.
George's dad was a school teacher, from what I understood, and when I would bring my car in, George would say, "Okay, it's this," and my eyes would get a couple inches bigger, and he'd go, "But I know you're a teacher," So give me what you can today, and we'll, do the easy time George payment plan. All right, okay, no problem. But it's that generosity.
Right.
It's what made George George.
Right.
And it's why I latched onto him. It's why Greg latched onto him. It's George didn't have any enemies around him.
Well, and
even behind his back, he didn't have enemies.
Right. Even people that didn't agree with him politically still love the man.
Well, we still did the show. I mean, there's a bit on there, a caller. We don't have to play, but just a bit. I mean, George and I would get it from both ends. I mean, the right leaning ones would call in, the left leaning ones, and we'd beat up on each other and stuff, but always shake hands at the end.
Right.
Everything was good. We were buddies. No problems. No problems. Callers would rank on George. They'd rank on some guy wanted me off the air for something I said, and George was like, "No, come on, no, But then the next caller, man, she laid into him for all of it, and it's what made the show work.
Right.
Nobody got angry. We get heated every now and again.
Sure.
But nobody got angry at each
callers
other.
got angry.
Callers got angry,
but not you and George.
Right.
But it really was sort of that last time. I mean, even now, I couldn't even imagine. There's very few people that disagreed as politically as the two of you that I could put into a room and wouldn't be at each other's throat by the end of the hour. You know what I mean? And that's the thing is, like, I think that's probably what we're losing. I mean, this is what I always say, like, when I argue with people on Facebook. I'm like, I wonder if I ran into you in person, like, at the grocery store. Would you do you go around yelling at people? Like, I mean, that's sort of the thing. It's like, I don't know. I think that's probably what we're losing. But even having guys like you was like, hey, look, we don't agree politically, but we can do a show and we can find.
Went out and had a beer afterwards. Had a beer before sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
Gosh.
So why don't we do this? It is 7 o'clock in the region. You're listening to AM 1230, 104.7 FM. Before I forget, I'll mention this a couple times. So we're talking about George Vincent, Big George the car guy. If you remember him from his time here on WJOB, passed away at the age of 73. So his there's going to be a memorial. The funeral service will be at noon this Wednesday at Schroeder Lauer Funeral Home on Ridge Road in Lansing.
Mm-hmm.
You can
visitation 10 to 11?
10 to 12. So
10 to 12.
10 to 12 before the service, but also they're having an open house at the shop and limited service automotive afterwards. So even if you can't make it during the day to the funeral, you can stop in limited service if you're a customer. Want to check in and be a good, I think.
Or if you just knew Big George, stop in and say hello.
Yeah, stop in a limited service,
please.
Corner of Ridge and Burnham and
that
Lansing.
would would honor George's memory more than if you just wished. Or sent your thoughts
but also,
silently for sure.
So what I want to do, we'll take a break, but also if you are a long-time listener to WJOB, you want to have, I know a few people had posted memories they had of George, so we'll take some calls after this, and we'll hear your thoughts on Big George. We'll play some more clips from Larry. We'll be right back with more after this.
Like the cool blue light, 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 like the cool blue light.
Hey, it is 7:06 in the region. I've got a full boat here. Got all the guys here. Got Larry, got Greg, got Bob. We are remembering George Vincent.
Bring donuts.
I was going to stop and get some Munster donuts.
Munster donuts. Bring donuts.
Yeah. So my cousin got married this weekend. It's like it couldn't be. He's not even from the region. He got married at Bosco, brought Munster donuts, and it's like,
wow.
Like, where's the White Castles at?
Yeah, no kidding.
But it was very nice to attend that. But so we're talking about George Vincent. George passed away, 73 years old. Services will be this Wednesday at Schroeder Lauer in Lansing. But I think so. One of the things, anybody that knew George, and then, like I said, I met him through the preacher, like a lot of you guys did. But he just sort of was one of those guys where once you spent some time with him, you just always, you wanted to kind of. He was just one of those guys that, even when he was going through all this medical stuff. I mean, the stuff he was talking about the stuff. Here's a guy who was trying to do radio while literally his throat was burned, and he's like, I'm gonna drink this.
There were days when his show would be on.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, he was just in the hospital this morning.
Right. He literally would come back from Chicago.
Yeah.
They're doing cancer treatments on
his throat.
He didn't
stop. Yeah.
And he said, no, we're doing a show.
Yep,
and he said,
do it.
We're going to do a show, and if I get hung up, we'll go to break, and you'll take over. It's like, I'm going to do the show. I'm going to push as hard as I can, and then if I can't, you'll jump in. And we had to do that a couple times where I'd look at him and go, no, this guy can't talk for another 5 minutes. We're taking a break. But again, he was one of those guys where he loved doing radio so much. He loved, being a part, communicating with people. It's like, to him, it's another way to reach people, right? To have discussions with people you'd otherwise not meet. So
I want to bring it over to Greg here. Joe in the folder marked Greg.
Greg?
Yes.
Greg.
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 In the folder marked Greg. See it there, sir?
Yes, I do.
All right, cool. Greg, why don't you go ahead and introduce a bit here for us.
Okay, well, we got to do a bunch of commercials for Unlimited Service Automotive, and originally he would write a thing, and he liked my voice, so I would read it in kind of a straight Unlimited Service Automotive, and then I forget exactly what happened, but my buddy Scott Merkel and I came up with this bit, like a kind of a vintage commercial. Hey, Tom, where are you going? I'm going to Unlimited Service Automotive. So we did one of those, and he liked it. And that was like, we came up with that idea. And I said, here, what do you think of this? He goes, oh, I like it. So then we kind of got carte blanche and just, do whatever you want. So we did a series of Unlimited Service commercials with either like old TV shows, cartoons, or in this case, we did we went to the classics, Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, and we did a Christmas Carol commercial for him. So if you want to play that, roll it, whatever.
Joe, it should be labeled Christmas Carol.
Or Scrooge. It might say
Scrooge, yes. Yeah, go ahead and play that. Folks, it really is playing in the background. Just imagine that you're hearing it.
So this kind of goes to that idea of you having one. We were talking about this the other day about television. There used to be 50 guys doing a job, and now Joe does.
Yeah.
So, okay, go ahead, turn it up.
Okay.
But you don't keep them, Uncle.
Jacob Marley, my old mechanic.
You will have 3 visions tonight, Ebenezer.
See yourself the day you purchased your car, Scrooge.
I promise I'll change your oil every 3,000 miles.
Now see today, Ebenezer, at the home of your clerk, Bob Cratchit. He cancelled another oil change, my dear.
Oh, Bob, I can't believe his car still runs.
Tell me, spirit of things to come, whose car is that in the junkyard? I'm calling 708-895-9520 to schedule an oil change with Big George at Unlimited Service Automotive, corner of Ridge and Burnham in Lansing, right now.
And a peace of mind inspection for everyone.
First I have to settle my head.
Big George and the gang at Unlimited Service Automotive want to wish you and yours a very happy holiday.
Yeah, so that was tough. You had to, fit the whole Christmas Carol in a commercial spot.
You had a minute.
Yeah, and we were usually down to 30 seconds, so this one went long, and I think he only played it on his Christmas shows, but it was a lot of fun.
They were good. I really, that work you and Scott did with George, I think those were good spots.
Yeah, and we also, Scott's wife, Nancy Merkel, my wife, Lori Starrett, and our friend Jim Lyle were also part of all those commercials, or most of those, and it was a lot of fun. It gave us a cool outlet, and that's, again, George. He's just so generous to let us do those things and do them how he wanted, and he liked them, so he wouldn't have put them on the air if he didn't. And that's just the way he was. He was generous with his time, generous with doing work at the shop, and like we were talking earlier, I was a customer of his too, and he was just a generous guy with time and money and you name it.
Yep, for sure. For sure.
Do you want to play any other clips? I mean, also we're taking calls if anybody has memories of George. You do have calls? Okay, so why don't we...
let's go ahead and take that call.
So let's do this. Throw out something you want him to look for while we take calls. So that way we can kind of split the time. So
look for Unlimited Scooby.
Unlimited Scooby. Yeah, let's take a call. So good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, the thing I remember most about George Vincent was he was really down on the future of electronic vehicles.
Yeah.
So, Walt, I was invited on. I helped him produce his car show, and basically I became a regular guest where we argued about EVs over and over again. But it was kind of funny just to see, back then it was just sort of theoretical, and then it became, so that was always the argument. And believe it or not, I finally, after a decade of arguing about it, I finally got him around to the point where he said, okay, he always wanted to ride in a Cybertruck. So I was trying to get him. It's like, I don't know if we could fit in the Cybertruck. I don't know if I can I don't know how tall it was. But that was one of the things I was trying to do before he got sick, was I was trying to get George a ride in a Cybertruck because he was coming around to it. Because it's kind of like one of those things. As a car guy, he liked the neat stuff.
Yep.
And we kept talking about all these neat things that are coming out, self-drive. A lot of the older folks, like, I'll never drive self-driving. But, I mean, it was like one of those things where he was coming around to it. But again, it's like a sign of the times, right? I mean, so for him, it was kind of like, we would talk about, all the issues, fires, and how to put. He even had a Lansing fire chief came on. A couple guys came on to talk about how you deal with EVs. So yeah, that was a running kind of discussion with George and I.
Always.
Yeah.
Have you seen your NIPSCO bill lately?
Well, we'll get into that. I do. If we have time later today, we'll talk about that because obviously a lot of people are opening their NIPSCO bills and are kind of shocked at the cost. And yeah, you're right. Adding an EV to that mix would be, for a lot of people, that's going to become an issue. But again, it's a whole nother topic for another day, Walt. I'd love to talk about it, about EVs and NIPSCO and all that stuff. But so you have any other memories of Big George?
The fact that he left. I mean, he had a good show talking about cars and so forth, and all of a sudden he left WJOB. Why?
That's another story for another day as well. But I mean, again, you've listened to this radio station a long time. You know that things change, get changed around.
Walt too. And after 10 years, it's the same thing for me too. When I was on, I mean, there was there wasn't much discussion as to why the show was canceled or anything, and that was really nobody's concern at the time.
Also, it was canceled.
Well, of course. If you remember, I mean, Walt, you call every day. You remember the station was in transition 10 years ago, moving from Olcott Avenue here to Purdue. So shows had to be taken off, reshuffled, and as Jim wanted to realize, went to realize what he wanted to do, and so on. Certain shows get left by the wayside, and that's how it is. There's no.
Did Purdue have any influence on this issue?
No. Don't even. Let's
so I mean,
move on.
again, that's how it goes, Walt. But yeah, let's save the NIPSCO discussion. I definitely think it's worth talking about. I know there's people putting out, wanting to have petitions and things like that. So we'll talk about that another day. But so I appreciate the call, Walt. But yeah,
Thanks,
let's get to all that another day. So
I got to ask now. We got a clip here with MX because MX would always call the show and have fun, and it was never contentious because we were all buddies. You know what I'm saying? Why don't you bring on? Do you got MX on the line? Do you know, Joe? That's right.
We don't
you
even
don't
know
have the
anymore.
ID.
So let's just take a call and we'll
caller roulette. Do it.
Yeah. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Chuck and you guys.
Hello.
Let me tell you about George. I started doing video productions in 2016 at Blue Top, doing my ground and air and stuff.
Right.
Well, anyhow, I was doing a car show on a Saturday at Blue Top, and this guy on a electric golf cart, his buggy, kept going up and down, and it seemed like everywhere I moved my camera, he was trying to get in it. And I thought, what is with this guy? And so I thought, you know how you got people when you're doing a video production, they see you got a camera, they're going to, like Channel 7 had it when they had a studio window. People stand there waving their hands crazy, But
yeah, for sure.
I kept thinking, so then all of a sudden went by that one little canopy, and there was Jolly Green Giant, Rick Kubiak. I mean, between him and Tom, when I look at them, stand by them two, I'm 6'1". I got to look up, and this is where it was interesting because I started to know George. Then I started to know Rick because I didn't know who Rick was. He was doing an interview with Rick was doing an interview with George.
Yes.
And so anyhow, every Saturday on the weekends, I'd go to Aldi's and Strax on 169th. Well, just east of Calumet, there's a Hammond Civic Club. And
yeah, the Maywood Civic Club.
Yep.
Yeah, he would. I knew what his car was, and every time I saw his car, I would stop in there, have a beer, and my wife called me. What's taking so long at Strax and Aldi's? I said, I'm in here having a beer with George, and it was nice. Boy, he was a person. When we were sitting at the bar in there, those, like pull tabs and stuff and all these clipboards and stuff. Man, he goes crazy on it, And George, he had a big cigar all the time, or some kind of cigar, But I mean, it was lovely because it's from 2016 and then on. Then he followed me on my Facebook page. I followed him. I'd watch his shows. His shows are very interesting, And like you said, his talking about the new cars and everything, and then like you said, the electric vehicles, EVs. I was really laughing over that one because it's like me. I don't like them, and boy, was that interesting. But George was such a wonderful person because when I would go in there and have beer with him, we'd just talk about everything else, and just beautiful, nice conversation. But boy, I tell you, I wonder if somebody's going to take over his spot and try to act like him. Maybe
you can't.
Now.
No, that's not going to happen, and that'll be it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm going to let you guys in a second go because I got my brother-in-law sitting here. He's got to run me around this morning to do some things. And
Mike, I hear you often on the phone. How you feeling, man?
Well, let me finish what I'm going to say about you guys. My brother-in-law, Derek, is sitting here. And now, don't take this offensively, but he says, them guys are chubby.
Yeah.
Now, you're not going to get mad at that, are you?
No, but I'm glad to see that your brother's eyes work.
Yeah, well,
thanks
he's
for sharing that with everyone.
Yeah,
that's great.
But physically wise,
cameras shows the whole studio.
I mean, and Big George was chubby too. I mean, so
right.
I guess we're all in good company here, Mike's brother.
but let me tell you about my medical eye condition. We're working on it right now. Things are going good. You know, we're I can actually see some stuff a little bit now. You know, and it's not picture perfect. You know, but I have, like my brother-in-law, he drives my car when we got to go somewhere, so it doesn't waste his. But you know, he's watching the show with us, so I got my brother-in-law watching you guys this morning. So let me finish up, and I'll let
is
you
he
go.
eating a donut while he watches us? I'm just wondering.
And what's his weight?
Yeah. He can come in. We can have a weigh-in.
Pant size, you know.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, I'd like to say it's a pleasure listening to you all at the station, and everybody out there, the listeners, the people out there, the station, everybody, just because it's going to be warm today, be careful, be safe, you know, and check on other people and make sure everybody's okay. Okie doke, and then I'm going to let you guys go, and you have a nice day.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, so do we want to? I think we got to sort of. We got one more call, and then we got to wrap up. Joe, can you pull up that? I sent you a picture too. So you play that clip. Can you put that? We'll play the Scooby clip, and we'll put that picture up on our way out to break if that works for you. So why don't we take one more call? We'll kind of finish up our thoughts, and then we'll reset. So okay, good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, Sheila, the traffic from heaven.
Perry, baby. How you doing?
Mix.
Good. Big George is riding around in that Etzel he couldn't fix. There's a pull up.
God.
Perry, you can pull up in heaven. You can get any part, and George finally found the water pump.
Man,
2 more payments, and it was going to be all his.
Yep, exactly. God, you know, MX, I was going through the bits the other day, preparing for this, and I found one. I found a couple because you called in, and we used to have a really good time. But there's 1 or 2 here featuring you, and I gotta let's see. What is this? This one. Okay. Well, can't do that. My fault. Joe, if you would, could you bring up MX Sound Mind?
Oh, that's something you never thought.
Wow, that's
right? Yeah.
Don't hear that together too often.
How you been otherwise, man? What's going on?
Good. I just wanted to bring up a few memories of the boys, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, go for that while you're getting that link, that clip brought up. Go ahead.
First time I met George, and everybody said that George said I was a loose cannon, but everybody knows that's not true.
Well, you're not as tight as you used to be. No, you're good.
There's 2 memories that stood out.
Please.
There was a little rumble inside of Freddy's, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody took Preacher's jukebox and kind of like hit the arm and didn't like the music.
Yes, yeah.
And Donnie from Hessville grabbed somebody by their belt loop and pushed, and they all fell over like dominoes because they were so drunk.
Yep.
You remember that?
Yes, I do. I do.
I was sitting over there down the bar, and I said to myself, well, they don't need my help.
Yeah, no, they're just fine. They're just fine.
Yeah. One more memory was Preacher and Donnie from Hessville and myself. We went to, what was the woman's name on Conkey Street that we used to go to? Dottie's.
Dottie's. I thought it was Dodo's.
Yeah, all Dodo's.
Dodo's,
yeah, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, she was another one that passed from the crew.
Mm-hmm.
So we covered up. Preacher was doing a jukebox at Dodo's, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had that blue blue Ford Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
And we had nowhere to put Donnie. So we covered him up with speakers. and I don't know if it was Donnie or Preacher. Preacher was riding around looking for a chocolate bar for Donnie. I swear
All right.
to God. I swear. And we're looking for this chocolate bar. And then finally, we give up on that mission, and we got home. And there was one other thing with Preacher. He had that nice Mustang, and he wanted me to take it home when he lost his keys. I found his keys in the river, and that Mustang came home. It had so much swamp grass on it. I parked it in his driveway, and he said, "I knew better to let a motocross rider drive my Mustang." It had mud. It had swamp grass. I said, "Dude, man,
Did he make you take it to Big George?"
Out. And you can't just say all the guys that it was a Preacher, Big George, and this. I got a little help from your friend there, and Teddy Oberman, and two L's, and then it was we forgot Cochise, Donnie from Hessville, and who am I missing? Teddy Oberman.
Oh God!
Well, Greg and Lori. You're missing Greg and Lori.
I think he's going.
But we're a lot. Oh, you're just
yeah.
What about
you're very much alive.
Yeah, Greg, who we missing? Who we missing?
Well, Elsie and Charlie might.
Elsie and
possibly
Charlie, Ronnie the Wrench,
Ronnie the Wrench, yeah.
Steve,
Ronnie the Wrench,
Cochise, Donnie,
Cochise,
couple of my brain cells,
Debbie.
Yeah,
Debbie.
You know what? That was one of those things. One of those chapters in our book. That was a lot of fun at the time. And I remember leaving this, and I'll let it go. Preacher stabbed Pumpkin with a butter knife.
Oh, geez, well, that's not good.
Okay, so we gotta go, MX.
I'm going to play that. I'm going to play that little
MX,
clip.
so
play that
Joe,
MX Sound Mind clip, and then we're going to go to your break. Thanks, Perry, for calling, man. I appreciate you.
I don't know if the statute of
Always.
limitations on some of those things has expired quite yet. So play that MX clip for us.
MX, can you hear me now?
Yeah, a little bit better. Not really good, but
Okay.
a little better.
Try Q-tips. What do you need?
I'll try that.
Okay.
Richard Nixon, the Presidential Physical Fitness Award. I got one. And it says MX in recognition of outstanding physical achievement and an exceptional dedication to the ideal of a sound mind and a strong
It
body.
was a great competition. I remember that.
Well, that's a forgery.
I remember that. That was a great competition. I'm
Yes.
proud of you. I'm proud of you that you won that. That was really something.
Yes, and thank you. And it says, my congratulations to you of this accomplishment, Richard Nixon. And you know what? I had bruised ribs because I fell off my dirt bike in 1972, and I did the competition. And you know what? It means a lot.
Did he take off the last 18 push-ups?
No, actually, I did the most sit-ups.
Oh,
Not
good.
sit-ups, pull-ups.
Okay.
I did the most sit-ups in a 700-man class.
Did they say anything about the time the doctor dropped you?
But you know what? The thing with the sound mind, I keep reading it, so, I've got hope.
So here's
and that was 11 years ago, Chuck.
MX used like 10 big words in that call and got 3 of them.
I know. No,
I love you, MX.
How can you not love Perry?
So final thoughts, guys.
Oh, final thoughts, God. When you called me Friday? Is that Friday? Yeah.
Friday morning, yeah.
When you called me Friday morning with the news, after I picked my jaw up off the floor, I sat down and I started digging through the files, the archives, and all that. And I had a chance to listen to stuff I hadn't heard in, 10, 11 years. And to hear George's voice, just to hear his voice really stuck me. I mean, really hurt. It hurt, but it was good in a way. And I spent about 5 hours going through those clips, listening to full shows, writing things down, and exercising the emotions, basically for today. I'm going to miss that guy, something fierce. He was a mentor to me. He was a father to me in some ways. I not the person who knew him the longest. I'm not the person who knew him the best in any way, shape, or form. But I'm gonna miss that guy. I'm gonna miss George, something fierce. I'm gonna have a problem with my car and come to the realization that I can't just call George and go, "Hey, can you diagnose this thing over the phone?" Which he would do, or hey. Let's go have a beer somewhere, or run into him at Freddy's, or that's gone, and that is going to be the hardest thing. That's the hardest thing. Chuck, thank you so much for letting me on today to do this with you, and for George's memory, my sympathies and condolences to Sandy, George's family. Ron Wood and his family. Ron is the general manager, the shop manager at Unlimited Service. My condolences to everybody who knew George, who had the opportunity to just know him.
And that's so many condolences because he
we'd be here for days.
So many lives.
We'd be here
through
for
the radio,
days.
through his business, just through being who he was.
Did Jim?
I don't. Well,
Jed, did you have anything you'd want to say?
I think he's doing other.
I know you're busy. Did you have anything you'd want to say about George while we're doing this?
Well, while he's getting set up, so George's visitation
doesn't take too long. When is the visitation?
The visitation is Wednesday from 10 to 12, and the service will be at noon at Schroeder Lauer on Ridge and Lansing. Afterwards, if you can't make it to that, there'll be basically an open house and Unlimited Service. If you're a friend, customer, whoever, stop at Unlimited Service. I'm sure it's going to be a party to remember. George.
So first of all, I haven't laughed out loud in my car alone in a while,
especially when listening to my show, for sure.
And then when Trucker Mike called in and said, "You guys are all chubby."
Yeah, that's right. That's right. His brother-in-law doesn't wear glasses, apparently. He's got good eyes.
Man, he's like right on it. But other than you, Larry Theck. I got to say that.
I ain't heard that in years.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
Thank you.
I mean, you're really talking about a lot of memories over the years, and certainly George was a big part of that, and he loved cars, and, he loved, the people around here.
Yep.
Just to put it into context, like a lot of things that happen here, and people come and go, and eventually I think his show had kind of matured long enough, and then he went on his own way and did really well with your help, Chuck, and I wish him well on all of that. But we're mildly related, you know that, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
who isn't in the region?
Yeah. So I'm going to go to the visitation, and I'll see a bunch of relatives.
Now, Jim, I've always wanted to ask, and just never really had the chance for such a small question. What is the context of that relation? Is it a marriage?
I want to say that someone in George's family married a podkul.
Oh, okay.
So
Makes sense.
I don't know if we were definitely blood related, but I've got a number of relatives that are also named Vincent.
Sure.
And I don't know the tree exactly. But George had a heart of gold, man. There's no doubt about it.
Yes, he did.
I remember one time, preacher called me up. He's like, "Hey, man, let's go get a drink." I'm like, "Come on, man. I got a family. I got kids. I got to go to a softball game." He goes, "All right, I'll call George again." I go, "Why?" "Well, does he usually, say yes to go out?" And he's like, "I'm going to tell you, Jed, I have called him hundreds of times to go out for a drink. He has never said no."
Right.
He just not one time said no. And I think that kind of explains George in that, he liked to have a good time and he liked to laugh, and we're all going to miss him.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, so Joe, let's play that clip.
Thank you.
Put that picture up, and we're going to reset. Chris Harden's here. We're going to talk about his visit to Gary. So go ahead and play that clip. We'll be back with more after this.
Which clip are we having him play?
I'll play the Scooby clip.
Oh, yes, please.
Yay.
Zoinks! The purple poltergeist prize is getting away in the mystery machine.
Yeah. Don't worry, gang. I've been meaning to take the mystery machine into Unlimited Service Automotive.
Gee, he just crashed into that creepy castle.
Jinkies, Fred. It's a good thing you didn't take the van to Big George at the corner of Ridge and Burnham in Lansing.
Yeah, good thing.
But we sure need to take it in now. I'll call them at 708-895-9520.
Now let's see who the purple poltergeist really is.
It's Mr. Flickman.
I would have gotten away, too, if only you meddling kids had went to Unlimited Service Automotive.
Yeah.
Stereophonic sound for the home is recorded on two separate tracks, each one giving special emphasis to certain sections of the orchestra, as heard from those positions. Now, when played back simultaneously on two separate systems, the sounds are blended together to achieve a new dimension in sound, impossible to obtain in a monaural recording.
Hey, it's 7:38 in the region. You got to turn yourself. You got to talk over me. You got to turn yourself up. Go. You're still. I don't hear you. Welcome to local radio, Chris. See if we can hear you guys. Hey, good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
There we go. So his works. Bob.
Good morning.
Jim.
I'm doing all right. How's that sound?
Good.
Hey, that's awful music. YouTube?
Talk to the producer about that.
Yeah.
We're on YouTube? Okay. All right, good enough.
Okay, so make sure.
I just want to let you know you're going to bring a guy in, and I got to meet him yesterday, right? Did I meet him?
Yeah, we met.
Yeah. Look how sunburnt he is.
Yes. I was not expecting a beach party when I went to Gary.
The Gary Air Show was phenomenal, and I wouldn't have been able to see it other than the fact that you have water in your basement. So thank you for not coming.
You want to interview me about that one too?
No, I will later, hopefully. Yeah, but I just want to say this. Chris is going to come on and talk about it. I had so much fun yesterday at the beach. The beach was perfect.
It was great.
It was not overcrowded. I guess Saturday was kind of pretty crowded, and that this was about half as much, which was still pretty crowded. A lot of good people, and Chris was out there, and I was waiting for you to show up. There was one more parking spot. But evidently, we don't need to go into what is very much trauma in your life, and I get
you get used to it after the third or fourth time.
Yeah, exactly. But I just
third or fourth time.
Yeah,
don't. It's like Final Destination. The floods just follow me.
That wouldn't happen in Dyer, would it?
No.
All right, man. Thanks.
Oh, some pumps don't fail in Dyer. I didn't know that. Okay, so hey Joe, are you recording this? Just make sure you're recording this. Record this segment. Make sure. Okay. So let's reset. Chris Harden is here.
Hello.
What up, Chris Harden? Come on. One time for me. Come on.
What up, WJOB?
Fantastic. You got to watch his show to understand why I always do that. But so Chris Harden's here. You spent the weekend in Gary. We're going to be – so we were talking about – we're going to record this. He may – if you say something amazing or off the cuff as a caller, we may throw this on – maybe part of his YouTube. So just be aware if you want to call in and talk about this, you may end up on YouTube. So Chris, we first met, somebody sent me your video about Hammond, which you did about a year ago now.
Well, about 3 months ago.
But you recorded it a year ago, though.
Yeah, I recorded it.
So you recorded it a year ago, and I only know that because there's a little bug in the bottom of all your clips, so we know when you were here. So you came to Hammond. You explored. You went to Crown Point, for instance. You've done a lot of the sort of the south suburbs and things like that. So you've been spending a lot of time here, but you're originally from what? From the Detroit area?
Yeah, I'm from the Detroit area, yes.
Okay. So what brought you down to the region originally a year ago, and what keeps bringing you back?
Well, for a while there, I have a wife who's actually in doc school, so we were traveling to Chicago for a while, and the types of videos that perform really well on my channel are videos about cities that have seen decline, and a lot of that is Rust Belt cities, so cities that depended on manufacturing while they were growing. And the south side of Chicago, the south suburbs of Chicago, there's a lot of that there. And so I kept making videos from that area every time that we ended up going to Rosemont for my wife's doc school program. And so that's why I kept coming back here, and those videos started to do pretty well. And so I just keep making videos of what my audience wants, if that makes sense.
One of the amazing things that I don't think younger people don't appreciate. I was watching a show the other day. They're talking about like pinball games and arcade games. Most of them came from Chicago. If you go to like an antique store, you would be amazed at how much stuff, obviously stuff related to steel, made out of steel, how much stuff, like Chicago was the China of a century ago. Like everything was made in Chicago, and it kind of makes you wonder what happened between then and now. Where did all those jobs go? Where did all those people go? Because it's a really interesting thing, and you think about Chicago as, every little building downtown, they were manufacturing things. They were making some random part, and then you'd find it, say, made in Chicago on there. So it really was such a manufacturing hub, not to mention, meat packing and all these things that we don't think about today if you don't know the history. But, okay, so let's get back to, so you reached out to me a couple months ago, said, hey, Chuck, I want to come to Gary. Because, again, as far as sort of textbook Rust Belt cities that have just an amazing story to tell about its history, Gary is one of the top. And I know just from our communications, one of the things I always appreciated about you was you want to come in and get the story straight. You want to talk to the people. You want to put out. You don't want to do a kind of just the I don't even know what to call it, but basically there's a lot of people that come to Gary and just set up shop at an abandoned church, go, here's Gary, Indiana, and they don't really tell the story. So I appreciate that you wanted to come here and tell the story. So tell me a little bit about your weekend.
Yeah, so it's been an action-packed weekend. I want to say I drove over Friday morning, and I was out all day filming stuff, talking to people and filming stuff. Same thing for Saturday. I was out all day talking to people and filming stuff. And then Sunday, yesterday, I was able to get a bunch of footage for the air show to include in one of the videos I'm going to make. But yeah, really, we did see a lot of those abandoned structures, but a big part of what I want to do, I want to explain why things have fallen apart the way that they have. I don't want to just say, yeah, this is Gary, look at it right now, this is what it is. I want to give reason behind everything. I want to give context behind everything. I want people who watch my videos on it to understand what happened here. And I think that is what sets me apart from the other YouTubers that you were talking about, where they just kind of come in and show whatever kind of footage they can get of abandoned whatever. I want to talk about why it happened the way that it did, and of course have really good video quality with it.
So I'm, being a little bit younger, I don't remember. So I know it's kind of an interesting thing in the region. There's the older folks that remember that vibrant downtown Gary or downtown Hammond. Like when you're in Hammond, you were talking about the downtown revitalization that they're doing. There are people that remember those days of taking the trolley to the movies and stuff like that. A lot of us of my generation never had that experience. I know those cities sort of on the decline after the layoffs at the mills and all these things happen. So to us, we don't have that sort of romantic tie to Gary or Hammond or even East Chicago where I'm from the way a lot of the older folks do. So for us, it's kind of like this is how it's always been. And then you talk to these older folks like, oh yeah, we'd walk up and down Broadway and we'd go get, hats and go do this and go do that. And what you find a lot of times is those older folks tend to hold on to that like it can come back. And for a lot of us, it's like, no, that ship has sailed. We've gone from the downtowns to the malls. Now the malls are now dying thanks to Amazon and things like that. So, we were the mall generation. So I guess it's interesting. I mean, I'm sure you've talked to a few people that had that sort of those romanticized memories of downtown Gary. It's sort of interesting just to hear from them and what it used to be. And a lot of them still think we can bring that back. And I just don't see that happening.
It's going to be a hard task. I have not come across a city with the downtown as sad looking as Gary's. I've been to Flint and Detroit. Downtown Detroit's always been a really lively place as far as I know. And now the neighborhoods around downtown Detroit are starting to see some, gentrification, some people would call it, but honestly, if Gary is going to come back, they do need to focus on the downtown area first. You can only, I think the right way to do it is to focus on one small part of the city, and in my opinion, that would be the downtown area, and then you try to expand from there. I think that's really the only realistic way for that to happen, and will that happen? Who knows? Can it happen? I think it can. I mean, I've seen downtown Detroit turn things, the neighborhoods around downtown Detroit turn things around. As soon as you would get outside of that bubble in downtown Detroit, it used to be just nowhere that you would want to be, but that's not the case anymore. And so anything could happen. It's just a matter of, will it happen?
So Bob, to your right, is a town councilman in Dyer. So he is one of those people. In government,
one of those folks.
One of those folks. So one of the things I always say that's about government in general is government knows how to grow. Government knows how to grow. So like, for instance, Bob from a town that's growing. I'm in St. John. These growing communities because of the Illinois thing, which you've heard about. Government knows how to grow, but government doesn't know how to shrink necessarily. And even when you mentioned Flint was a perfect example of a government where the community was shrinking, and in order to try to deal with the costs of the water infrastructure, which was way oversized, they started basically cutting corners, and it came back to bite them. Right?
You're exactly right.
The Flint water story is a really interesting example of how government can't handle cutting back and shrinking, which is something I talk about occasionally here on the radio. Government cutting back. So this is one of the things. So I've talked about this for years, the idea of Gary. I said, I almost wonder if it makes sense to sort of de-annex Gary, like you said, to cut it into smaller pieces, more digestible chunks. It's like you can't, because you have this massive infrastructure. Once you build a water system, a power grid, streets, I've said that there are lights in Gary that have been out for 30 years just because they can't get around to or find the resources to fix them.
There's lights that you see that I don't ever recall working.
Right. And so then it becomes a question of like, well, if nobody lives here, why bother fixing them? But also that's infrastructure. Every piece of infrastructure needs to be maintained, and there's a cost there. So that becomes an interesting question, like you said, about you're a community that declined, and now that you're trying to rebound, but you have this massive infrastructure that needs to be taken care of. You can't neglect half the water grid. You can't just shut off power to half the town. You can't just neglect. Well, you can neglect half the roads, but that's sort of the issue is how do you ever, if you're starting small, or even like Gary had a huge issue of the schools. I don't know if anybody, I'm sure Jim or somebody talked to you about, they have all these abandoned schools and all these, like what do you do when you have a shrinking population where you don't need 10 or 20 schools, you only need 4? How do you manage dealing with all those buildings, right?
Well, you have to find a way to tear them down. Otherwise, they're just going to sit there and rot away and just be eyesores. There's a lot of these old school buildings that have amazing architecture, and you can possibly do something with some of these old school buildings. I believe, are they trying to turn the old Roosevelt High School into a museum?
And that'll be something we get to. We can get to it now. Is one of the stories of Gary of late is this story, and I've sent you a couple links about this. There are a lot of there's a lot of Gary's future, a lot of Gary's present is based on this idea of a lot of like we're hoping and wishing for things, and a lot of promises that like we talked about. So like for instance, Donald Trump came to town 30 years ago now when the casinos came to town. He brought the Miss Universe pageant to Gary. Magic Johnson came to town. The Jackson family came to town and talked about building a Michael Jackson amusement park. There's a lot of these sort of promises. And even when we talk about the airport, we've dumped, I don't know, Bob, $1 billion into that airport.
Plus.
Saying, and again, the problem is there's promises. Guys, we're going to create 86,000 jobs. We're going to bring 5 airlines to Gary. And then after the money is spent, they go, never mind, FedEx is going to use it for freight. We're not going to have the airlines. Never mind, we're not creating the jobs. And again, those same guys working on the train now, but that's a different story. So again, a lot of what's happening in my lifetime of Gary has been these broken promises of, like I said, Magic Johnson came to town. There's a big press conference. Never heard from him again. Maybe stuff happened behind the scenes. I don't know. Donald Trump came to town. Oh, we're going to revitalize Gary. Never heard from him again. So one of my points about Gary has always been going back to like Detroit. When I think about Detroit's revitalization, I hear a lot of stories about like artist colonies, people buying houses for $1, artists buying an entire neighborhood in Detroit and turning it around and again, that's outside investment, right? And one of the things that happens, in my opinion, watching Gary is Gary needs outside investment, but a lot of people come into town and make these. We're going to have a cell phone they're going to make cell phones in downtown Gary a few years ago. Never heard from them again. Do you know what I mean? And so Gary needs outside investment, but a lot of these people come in, have the big press conference, and then we never hear from them again.
In order to get this outside investment, I think what Gary needs to do is focus on the little things and not the major announcements. You've told me that, and a few other people I've talked to over the weekend have told me that. Because when you focus on these major announcements, you're over your head. You don't have the money to put these things together, and that's why they never come through, because it's too expensive. So in Detroit's case, I want to say back in 2016, the mayor that's currently with Detroit, they put together something where they replaced all of the streetlights in the city. So they put white LED streetlights across the whole city. And that was a major thing. But that's not something that's going to grab all of the headlines like a brand new sports arena or like a brand new amusement park, like what you're saying with the Jackson family. It's doing the little things, making your city more attractive for other people from the outside to want to invest, and that's part of it. And I know that you said that Gary has had some people from the outside want to invest, but the city has to do their part. They have to take care of the little things that they can take care of. And what you said about de-annexing the city, I don't think there's been a city in this country that has done that. Can you think of one?
Right, and that's the question is, when you have this massive, like I said, I mean, it hasn't been done, but sometimes you got to think outside the box. And, and so that's what I said, even like the fact that Hammond is overtaking Gary as the most populous. I told the mayor of Hammond when he was in there, I said, you should have that airport because I think you'd be able to do more with it than Gary can. Because again, when you have so one of the things about Gary is they have, if you were to list Gary's assets on paper, access, highway, railroad, water, air. If you were to list those assets to like an investor, somebody looking for a place to set up shop, they go, that's a slam dunk. And then you say, oh, by the way, it's Gary, Indiana, right? You go, oh, right? I mean, that's the problem. And that's what I've always said is that they have an image problem, and how do we fix that? How do we fix that without a lot of outside investment? One of the other things, and I'll send this to Bob, is he talks about the press conferences. Why does government do that? Because everybody loves a ribbon cutting. Everybody loves a press conference. Look what I did. And I hear stories, and this isn't the current administration, but there are previous administrations where somebody'd come to town and say, hey, we're moving from Illinois because of the tax situation. We're moving our facility to Gary. They do all the work, and then like a week before the grand opening, the government would finally reach out to them and go, okay, when's the ribbon cutting? It's like, where have you been this entire time? We were trying to pull permits and all that. Like you were nowhere here during the process, the red tape. You were never here to help us. And then as soon as we're calling a grand opening, as soon as we're cutting the ribbon, everybody wants to show up and be part of that.
And I would not be surprised if you went back at the timing of all of those felonious press conferences. Where were they at in the election cycle?
A month before the election, October.
Yeah.
They were all in September, October, right?
And that's when it is. We've had a few restaurants, small businesses have those, and it's great to welcome folks to the community, but you have to be there from the beginning. Your job is to clear the path for these folks to come in and invest in your community, and I'm not sure that's something that Gary understands how to do. You had talked about in Dyer, we're a relatively established community. We have some growth, a couple big things going on. St. John is experiencing huge growth. That's what government knows how to do. But Chuck, to what you said, once you get a place like Gary, Hammond, East Chicago, Whiting, that's established, they don't know how to retract.
Right, and
they don't know how to retract without government money.
And the problem is, like, even when Chris was in Hammond, when you do have to do that, you bring in a consultant who says, okay, your retraction is spend $300 million. You know what I mean? Like, it's always spend more money. It's never how do we retract, basically reset, and then regrow what we have. That's not something that government knows how to do, and in some cases, that's what needs to happen. So, but here's what I do want to take. So we got Chris Harden here on YouTube. You can find him. Great videos about Hammond, Crown Point, other places in the area. I want to open the phones after the top of the hour. If you have any thoughts, if you grew up in Gary, if you live in Gary, if you have anything you want to add to Chris's story of Gary, I want to hear it. It's something that, being an outsider, we talk about Gary quite a bit. It's sort of like I forget what that joke is. It's like nobody can beat up my little brother but me.
Right.
People in Gary don't like people outside of Gary talking about it, but also at the end of the day, I've always said it's sort of like if you have that pack mentality. Gary is sort of one of the weak members of the pack. It needs our support. It needs the county support. It needs the state. And one of the things that you run into, and I'm sure you understand this, Chris, is the politics of the state are interesting because you're in a blue county in a red state. So a lot of times that comes into play as well, where there's sort of this back and forth between local politicians and state politicians. And this goes back to what I always say about politics. Unless we can come together and agree, they're never going to get anything done because everybody likes to mudsling and go, well, we want to be the ones that cut the ribbon.
And now with that, what I will say, for some of the statewide folks who may want to work with Gary, and sometimes, or really any of the blue communities up here, is from the outside there's a perspective of, well, why would they want to help each other? And there's a perspective that look, some of those blue voters are never going to vote red, and some of those red voters are never going to. Perfect opportunity to help each other. You're not going to lose anything. You can only win by that.
Well, and that's the thing is that, a lot of people like Kuziak likes to say rising tides and things like that. It doesn't do the rest of us any good if Gary is not doing well. A healthy Gary is good for everybody, a healthy Hammond. So one of the things like Bob's from South County, we always talk about even amongst this county, you have a red South and a blue North. And now a lot of people like Bob say, well, maybe the story isn't the North. You spent a lot of time talking about Gary and Hammond, but the story of growth and success is in the South. You say that all the time.
I have said that, and here on this the lovely studios here at WJOB is, when I say critical, I don't mean in a bad way, but I've said, every time I tune in, it's always what's going on in Hammond, Gary, East Chicago, North is like, there is an entire county here that is south of 8094 that is absolutely thriving in 9 ways to Sunday, and nobody seems to want to talk about that. And I don't know if it's just because of the perhaps the location of the studio and the longtime listeners and the longtime callers, but there is so much positivity about Lake County that gets glossed over because we end up spending time talking about, my dad has some of those romanticized stories of Hammond and Gary growing up there in the 50s and early 60s that you're not going to go back to that now. And he realizes that, and I think there's a fair segment of his generation, the mid-60s to mid-70s, that they've almost written it off.
But even when, Chris, you talk about tearing down a school, you start talking about tearing down somebody's old high school. Oh, man.
Oh, I know.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Even here in Hammond, they built a new school, and these people come out of the woodwork. Go, how dare you? I haven't been there in 50 years. I haven't been to a football game. I haven't supported my school, but how dare you tear down my old high school? I mean, again, that's sort of that's the mentality of everything that you want to do. We even tried, there's times they tried to tear down a theater here in a town, and everybody showed up, and no, don't tear down, let's do something with it. You guys should spend money on it. Not, and I might go there, but I mean that's sort of the thing.
That was
the
two different theaters, the one in Highland and the one in Crown Point.
Right.
People went up in arms, and just as a small attachment to that, some folks will say, "Oh, this business closed. It's horrible. It's the government's fault." Well, you didn't go there.
Right.
It's not our job to keep this open and running.
Well, or why can't government keep my Walgreens open or something? Like, no, that's not how any of this works. I'm going to protest because my grocery store is closing down. Well, I always say capitalism doesn't necessarily discriminate. If there's money to be made, somebody will be there to make money. So, hey, it is 8 o'clock in the region. You're listening to AM 1230, 104.7 FM in beautiful Hammond, Indiana. I got Chris Harden here. I got Bob Starkey here. We're going to take a break. We're going to reset. We got some traffic and weather to talk about, and we'll take your calls after this. Hey, it is 8:04 in the region.
How about that traffic, Chuck?
How about that traffic? Yeah, so we do have one traffic thing to talk about. So everything is looking good here in Indiana. Things are looking pretty good in Illinois, but we do have, so there was an earlier accident inbound Dan Ryan before 71st. It originally had 3 lanes down. Looks like it's down to 2 lanes, but basically your backup is 71st all the way through the Dan Ryan, through most of the Bishop Ford. So I'm putting out a watch the Bishop Ford. If you're out there, let us know. It looks like the Bishop Ford is building. So if it were me, I would pay the ransom and avoid the Dan Ryan Bishop Ford because this accident is just south of the Skyway. So if you're coming from that direction, I would definitely pay the ransom so you don't sit in this traffic from the earlier accident. Other than that, things looking good on the roadways. Joe, how's weather? Turn your mic back on.
Okay. Perfect. So
diaphragm, Joe. Push. Radio
okay,
voice.
so today,
there you go.
For the weather, we're gonna have some thunderstorms later in the day, but throughout most of the morning, it just should be cloudy and humid. The thunderstorms will roll into the next day with a high of 83, and the thunderstorms obviously continuing. On Wednesday, it will finally clear up, but the weather won't change much with a high of 83. Likewise on Thursday, and then for the weekend, we have a high of 87, 92, and 89 for all days, and it's just going to be clear and humid.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My friend Jeff just messaged. Is that you on WJOB? Yes, Jeff, that is me on WJOB. And Chris Harden and Bob Starkey.
Good morning.
Chris is one of those newfangled YouTubers you hear. So your kids are always talking
on the
about.
YouTubes.
He's on the YouTube. Are you on the TikTok and all that stuff?
I am on TikTok. I don't post much on there. Most of my stuff is long form, 30-minute stuff that I upload to YouTube.
Everybody keeps telling me, like, you got to get on the TikTok. There's everybody's on there, but again, like you said, I don't know that the kids are really interested in
anything
that
say.
we do. Yeah,
right.
Okay, so Chris Harden is a YouTuber. He travels to different cities and gives them a score. He travels the community, meets people, gives it a livability score. He's been to Hammond, he's been to Crown Point, been to some of the south suburbs of Chicago. He's in town this weekend. He went to Gary, hung out, met some people, went to the air show. Hopefully you guys got a chance to go to the air show. Sounds like it was a lot of fun. Very unique to have an air show. I remember taking my kids there. You're out there, you're basically out on the beach, kids are playing in the water, and all of a sudden a B-2 bomber comes flying over your head. Really a neat, unique experience. A lot of air shows are like you're standing in a field somewhere. This is one of the few that you get to relax and get cool off while you're watching the air show.
Yeah, I know there are some air shows over where I live in the Metro Detroit area, and I know there's some air shows that I've heard of down by Dayton, Ohio. I used to live in this town called Richmond, Indiana, and I would hear about that. But I've never been to one of these air shows, and it was a perfect place to see the first air show that I've been to, with it being over Lake Michigan. How it was pretty neat.
Yeah, no, I'm glad they brought that back. It was gone for a while. They brought it back. So again, they have these little victories, like bringing the air show back. A lot of different groups got together. The Visitors Authority, all these different people came together because again, something like that is not easy to do. There's a lot of logistics. These people work in like 2-year cycles,
and it's expensive.
Yeah. And there's just a lot of logistics involved. But kudos to everybody that pulled that off, because again, it's a nice thing. And also one of the things, like Bob, for instance, is a season ticket holder for the Gary Railcats. I don't know if you saw the stadium.
I did. Love them.
So again, it's one of those things where even only 2 people, I think, went to jail when they're building the stadium, which is about average for the region. But it became a beautiful stadium. I go there a few times a year. Bob's there all the time. It's a great little success story, but not a lot of people go, and it's sad. Because, again, going back to that sort of Gary reputation. But you go there, there's officers everywhere. There's people, directing traffic. You can jump on and off the highway. So it's unfortunate that a lot of people in the region don't support the team. Even if you just want to go get a cheap hot dog. They have pierogies there. They have all kinds of food there. Just go. You get
Taco Tuesday, Pierogi Wednesday.
Right.
It's not that expensive.
Right.
You get to watch a ball game. It's a great environment. It's a great area, and we'd always felt safe going there too. There's that concern of you're going to Gary, what's happened. Now I will say that if something ever were to happen there, I think that would be the end of the Steel Yard. But they take such care to make sure that it's a safe place. We're up there all the time.
So Chris, what were your thoughts as far as Gary has this reputation? You're coming for the first time. How did you feel going there?
I saw what I expected to see, because I've heard about Gary my whole life, and I've only driven through to avoid the disaster that is 8094. So I've taken a couple of bypass routes through the city, so I've seen some of it before, but I haven't actually dove deep and drove around to the neighborhoods to actually see it. It looks a lot like a lot of inner city areas in Detroit. I mean, that's my first thought because I've been through Detroit many times and saw the same thing. The other thing I would say, you're talking about the ballpark in downtown. That's about the only thing going for it in downtown is the ballpark. If they could build some momentum off of that and expand that to maybe some other businesses on the streets surrounding the ballpark, like some restaurants, and if those could start doing well, and then maybe that is a good way to build some positive momentum. But something has to happen, or Gary's just going to continue to die, and maybe the ballpark won't be able to sustain itself. Maybe that minor league team moves to another area,
Well, and even before that, we had the Genesis Center, which was across the street. That's where the Miss Universe pageant was like 30 years ago. But they also had a basketball team called the Steelhead. Same thing. It was a great time. I used to go there. We televised the games, and it just sort of fell off. And now that convention center has been pillaged and is abandoned, much like the hotel across the street. But it was funny you mentioned the highway because, again, but without government, our government's about to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to fix that highway with flex roads. And next time, if you come visit in 2 or 3 years, we'll talk to you again and see how you feel about the highway. But same idea. Is like I remember a story of a guy who actually opened a restaurant on Broadway in Gary, and it was doing quite well. And then government came in and said, "Oh, by the way, we're going to buy up this whole block, tear it down, and do something else." And I don't think they ever did the something else. Right? I mean, again, it's like one of those things that one of the things I talk about, and we were talking about this over the break, is this idea of government red tape. And especially when you have a lot of Gary is going to have to, like you said, you're going to have a lot of small business owners, people that want to come in and start a little mom and pop restaurant, start a little, whatever, coffee shop, restaurant, whatever. And they need two things. They need support from government. They might need some government funding, which is out there for a lot of small business owners, SBA, stuff like that. But they also, and I always say, it's like at a certain point, government just needs to stay out of the way.
Get out of the way.
And let them do it, right?
Yes.
And that's one of the stories that I've heard from many people that have tried to invest in Gary, whether it was a business or rehabbing homes. Government got in the way and said, hey, here's who you're going to use for your electrician. Here's who you're going to use for the plumber. Probably my cousin. Who knows? But, I mean, that's the kind of story that we hear a lot of times is, when you have to rebuild, but we're hearing this right now after the wildfires in California. They talk about all of there's all this money going somewhere, there's all of this red tape, and they've approved like 2 permits. You know what I mean? Like, this is one of those times that government just needs to get out of the way and go, okay, what do you want to do? And what? It's not to say no regulations. We're not saying, no fire codes. We're saying, here, what do you need? Even like the idea of, businesses want to open up. Like, here, let's have a class. We're going to teach you what you like. I don't know, Bob, does anybody have a class like on I'm starting a business? Here's the kind of permits you need. Because it seems like as a business owner, constantly they're coming to me and go, oh, by the way, IDEM changed the rules. You now need one of these. Oh, by the way, this rule changed. Now you need to spend $2,000 on this. That's what being a business owner to me has always been, is like, oh, by the way, you don't have one of these, or it's like we haven't had one for 20 years. I talked about these airwaves, about having to replace a scale that was 20 years old, that passed certification for 20 years. They said, oh, by the way, you need a new $1,000 scale. I'm like, you've been approving this scale for 10 years. What is wrong with it? Oh, they didn't catch it. Like, you signed off on this scale. Why am I spending $1,000 as a bit? Well, one guy decided I need a new scale. That's to me government in a nutshell when it comes to business. And that's the story of Gary to me, is people want to invest, whether they're local or outside, and there's red tape. I'll get off my soapbox. Chris?
Yeah, so I'll go back to Detroit because I have a lot of knowledge of that city, and a lot of comparisons are made between the two. So back, I want to say maybe 15 years ago, I can't remember the exact date, there was a major company that was headquartered out in the suburbs in Detroit, in the city called Livonia. And it's west of the city, but the owner of that company, Dan Gilbert, you can feel about him the way that you want. He's also the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, so some of you might know him. He moved his company to downtown Detroit. He bought up a bunch of buildings. He became a a real estate giant. He owned a lot of real estate in downtown Detroit, bought up a lot of the buildings, rehabbed a lot of them, and he got a lot of breaks from the city. And people can be mad about that all they want, but that is what started the initial movement to downtown Detroit and why we're seeing the city come back the way that it is, because someone from the outside invested in the city. And with Detroit being a large metro area with about 4 million people plus, downtown Detroit has a lot of interest from people who live out in the suburbs. Everybody wants to see Detroit do well. Everybody wants to see the city come back. And so that's a big reason as to why the comeback in downtown Detroit has been able to, go through. And I wonder sometimes if Gary is just being overshadowed by Chicago in terms of investors, being interested in potentially investing in Gary. I wonder if that is part of the setbacks that the city has in that area.
So Bob, he said something important. TIFs being used for blight, which was the actual intended purpose of TIFs, was to be used for blight, and it was a success story. Again, I don't want to get into TIFs, but that's
leave my TIFs alone.
Hit one of my triggers, like the abuse of the TIF system. But again, that's the point of TIFs. We have this neglected area, put a TIF, use it for blight. Somebody buys it, somebody does it. But again, we live in that world where the guy who's, like you said, the guy who's successful and owns a basketball team, everybody hates him even though he's the one responsible for fixing things, right?
Well, and that's where you had mentioned, because we see that often, even down in St. John. I think you guys are doing something by the new Jewel.
Mm-hmm. Blight. That's the one blight.
The one blight is given, and there were some folks that said, "Hey, don't be giving these places the tax money." It's like,
it's been empty for 20 years. Do something at this point.
With TIF, there's what they call the but-for test.
Yes.
And Jewel would not be moving there, but for this TIF project, and so folks can get mad at this owner coming into Detroit and buying up stuff. But again, if it wasn't available to him, it doesn't go there.
So, but let's get to your point though about Chicago, because as you know, one of the interesting discussions here, and we even, like Brandon Johnson last week had a press conference. He basically said in so many words, I can't even say on the radio what he said, but basically we're in trouble. We've taxed everything. We're running out of things to tax, and we're still broke. And I want a high interest loan. I mean, again, Chicago has dug itself into a hole. So for a lot of people, I've said, for the reason that Bob's town and my town has doubled in size is because all of these people that saw the writing on the wall and said, "I'm out of here. I want to go to the low taxes," just like you saw with Crown Point. Crown Point was literally a square and cornfields 20, 30 years ago. And now any piece of land they can find, they build a subdivision on. It's amazing to have lived through it. Dyer, even down here, this busy strip of this road here, 41, was cornfields when we were younger. And a lot of that is, I've said, the region just needs to put out the catcher's mitt and catch everybody leaving Chicago, leaving Illinois, because there's no light at the end of that tunnel. There's no fixing this in the next decade or two. So one of the things that we have going is put out the catcher's mitt. So this train discussion, they said, let's double one of these broken promises. Let's double track the train through Gary, and then we'll have a renaissance in Miller. And then I would go to these people and go, "Oh, by the way, just minor point of order, the train is already double-tracked through Gary." And they're like, "How dare you, you're an ableist." I'm like, "No, I'm just pointing out the train is already double-tracked. Adding a third track or a fourth track is not going to fix your problem. Something else will." But that's sort of the thing, is they have this idea that just hop on the train in Miller, go downtown, and all the kids are going to move to Miller. But you don't have anything for them yet. Hammond is doing the same thing. When you're in Hammond, they're going to build a train station in downtown Hammond, and they're building these lofts out of old skyscrapers, and that's the plan. We're going to build these lofts, the kids are going to come and ride the train, and that's the plan. Whether it's going to work remains to be seen.
But that's a plan, right?
Right, it's a plan, which is something.
And, I mean, in my opinion, what you need the right people in office, and they need to take action. So in Detroit, Mayor Mike Duggan has took action and has been taking action for a long time. And it's not the big announcements like what you keep talking about with Gary, with the $1 billion expansion at the airport that's supposed to employ like
86,000 people.
86,000 people.
And we hired 86.
There's not 86,000 people left in Gary.
There you go. There you go.
That's math that we don't need to be mathing right now.
Only half of them need to come from Gary.
So I mean, you don't need these major announcements and trying to get the big headlines and, oh man, Gary's going to do that, really? Well, and then they end up never doing it because it's not realistic.
And it's easier than actually doing the work.
It's easier to show up at the ribbon cutting and hope nobody remembers.
But what I really like about what Mike Duggan has done with Detroit, it's all the little stuff. Taking care of the blight, tearing down as many blighted buildings as they possibly can, having a whole entire budget set aside for tearing down blight throughout the city because there's so much of that there. But he's done a great job, and it's not going to take, it's going to take a lot longer than just a couple of years for a city like Gary to turn around, for a city like Detroit to turn around. It's going to take a very long time, and you have to do things the right way the whole time for it to be able to happen.
Well, even I'll give kudos. I've given kudos a couple times to the Hammond mayor because he did things like he'd have a ribbon cutting for like a new sewer line or something like that. But like, look, that may sound silly, but kudos for doing that because we have an aging infrastructure and you have to pay it like the out of sight, out of mind. And I know, Bob, you deal with this a lot too.
We had somebody say we had a year or two where we were really focused on some underground infrastructure. And the advice was, well, there's nothing for people to look at. Yeah, but it's water. People kind of need that,
right?
And
it's a necessity.
And I don't know that they were necessarily dissuading us from doing it, but it was just, well, if you put the money in this park over here, boy, that's a lot of pomp and circumstance you can have with that. But again,
well, look, it's government, man. You dig a hole, you show everybody the hole, you fill the hole,
you fill it up,
you dig it, just whatever. But I mean, again, same idea. It's like have a ribbon cutting for a new sewer line, replace some water lines, leave a big trench, and say, hey, everybody, come, don't fall in, but stay at a safe distance, but come see this trench because we're putting a new, like, show people because they don't think about it until it doesn't work, and they go, why did you guys? Why are you wasting time on the infrastructure? And when the infrastructure fails, why didn't you fix the infrastructure?
Yeah, so maybe the next time Gary gets one of these grants, maybe update all the traffic lights throughout town or the street lights or something.
Hook them up, maybe, get them working again.
Instead of these major announcements that don't ever come to be.
Right. We fixed this traffic light at Ridge Road that's been out for 30 years. We fix this. Have a grand opening for a traffic light. I would attend.
Now here's a question. Here's a question. It's
pose it. We're going to take a break. So
okay.
Pose it for the break. Go ahead.
The question is the amount of resources that it would take to turn around Detroit, turn around a Gary. The question is it worth it?
You're listening to Summer of Chuck 2, the Electric Boogaloo, here on WJOB. Chuck Pullen, Chris Harden, Bob Starkey. We'll be back with more, and we'll take your phone calls after this. Hey, it's 8:25 in the region. Summer of Chuck too. I was just explaining to Chris about the whole the casinos and how they used to have to float and how they were riverboats.
Oh, yeah.
They were casinos that didn't leave the. Go ahead, put your headset on because that's helpful.
And they had captains.
This is what I told them.
You had to have a captain.
You had to have a yearly Coast Guard inspection. You had a captain making 6 figures a year for doing nothing. I mean, that's the greatest government job ever. It's like, hey, I'm the captain
Sign me up for
a
that,
ship
yeah.
that never leaves. It used to. I remember like when the Empress and Hammond would leave once a Sunday, like once a month, they would go out for an hour. But again, it's just this weird government rule. Your casino has to float, and you have to maintain it like it's a boat, even though it's not. 826 in the region. Chris Harden here. Bob Starkey here. Do we have phone calls, Joe? Let's take some calls. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
You know, one of the biggest lies told by the Democrats in Lake County, Indiana, is that as Gary goes, so goes Northwest Indiana. It is blatantly ridiculous. I mean, as Gary has continued to slide into people, and small business guys who do business all over the Northwest Indiana area, they don't say it's going to die. They say it is dead.
Well, okay, let me push back on this real quick. So, Bob, when there's a crime in Dyer, when there's a chase in Dyer, when there's a robbery in Dyer, where do those people come from?
Illinois.
They come from Chicago. So the point, but Wald, as somebody, I mean, again, most of the crime in my area comes from people coming from Chicago, looking for a quick hit, and then going back to Chicago because they know they probably will get away with it if they can just get across the line. So the point is, though, my point is having more places where people are struggling, that lends to more crime. I mean, would you not agree that the rest of the community is opening itself up to more crime?
My point is that while Gary has continues to slide into the utter destruction, South Lake, Indiana, Porter County has thrived. So the idea that the future of Northwest Indiana is dependent on Gary is blatantly ridiculous.
Okay, so Chris,
on the face of it.
So, Walt, I've got Chris here. You're one of the guys that was around in that time when Gary had a beautiful downtown, as did Hammond, East Chicago. So what do you, like, if Chris is talking about, basically how to turn Gary around, do you have any thoughts?
It's not going to be turned around because Gary would have to do 3 things. End voting for corrupt politicians. It's one of the most corrupt cities in America. End their racial politics, one of the most racist cities in America. And third, violent crime, which on a per capita basis is twice as bad in Gary as it is in Chicago. Those 3 things. When the people of Gary deal with those 3 things, instead of saying, send us more, they don't want to be talked about, but they just say, send us more money, right?
Okay.
Sorry.
Perfect, Walt. I appreciate the call. So that brings up another interesting topic. So, like, for instance, so we have cities and we have townships. Gary's, though, I think, Bob, help me on this. Is it the last 4 trustees were either indicted or had some sort of investigation, something like that? So
it's 3.
Is it 3?
3 or 4.
I lose track, but again, and then so
it's a prerequisite.
Bob, as being part of the local Republican Party, we had the county fair. The Republicans' booth at the county fair showed 40 of the 70 plus politicians that have been indicted or went to jail here in the region. So when you talk about Chicago, we always talk about Chicago as this corruption capital. I say, well, it's because they forget to talk about the region. We've literally sent nearly 100 people to jail in the last century for political corruption. Previous sheriff, previous surveyor, you name it, previous council. We had several mayors under indictment at the same time here in the region. We sent several. Well, go ahead. Go, Joe. Jump in. What? Am I wrong? Put your mic up. Where am I? Am I wrong?
I'm literally laughing because I didn't know any of this. So
again, you're and this is why that's why the Republicans had this booth at the fair. We literally have spent. I mean, he was saying close to 80. I'm in the 70 plus 80 people have been indicted. Politicians. I mean, just for the silliest things, taking mostly taking bribes, mostly for all these little things. I mean, even like the last Whiting mayor, it was something relatively silly. He took money out of his campaign. It's like silly little things. But when you're a politician,
was that the campaign or was that the casino one? that
that was his campaign. The other mayor took
taking money from a food bank.
Literally, I mean, we had a mayor, it was Portage mayor, literally took money from the food bank to go to the casino and gamble with. So again, it's just like it becomes comical. We had a city councilman in East Chicago that murdered a rival drug dealer in his backyard, even though he knew East Chicago had ShotSpotter. It's like, hey, don't shoot somebody in your backyard. You wrote the check for ShotSpotter. You should know that they're going to come find you. It becomes like embarrassing and silly how much corruption we have in the region.
Well, I haven't done a lot of research on that yet, but I have done a lot of research on that for the suburbs of South Chicago.
Mayor Tiffany, one of my favorite people.
Yeah, not just Stoughton, but I recall a story from Markham where
jeez,
there was a library director who was also a pastor at one of the local churches, and he ended up embezzling about $850,000, if I remember correctly, from the city's funds over a course of time.
So I was a freelance journalist for a long time, and I'll just say this. A sitting mayor once threatened my life for covering a story in his city. I won't tell you what city it was, but they filmed the Blues Brothers in their mall. So yes, I've run into that firsthand. He told me, if you don't leave now, I'm not going to let you leave, because it was his cousin who was shot in a drive-by. So yeah, I've run into that a few times. But again,
I would say so.
The fact that even with Dalton, Mayor Tiffany leaves and the new guy comes in, and within 10 minutes, people are like, this is going on. It just becomes comical. The Mayor Tiffany thing became just an international embarrassment for Dalton. But did anybody learn a lesson? I don't think so. I don't think anybody's going to look back. And this is, again, not to get on my soapbox again, but I always say it's like,
I
used to blame the politicians, but I'm at the point where I'm like, at some point the voters have to take responsibility for. Here in the region, I always ask you, how many people have you sent to jail? How many people have you voted for that have gone to jail before you go, hey, maybe we need to revisit how this works? But again, and that goes back to our image. We have an image problem, Chris, and people come in, whether, we used to be, Gary was the murder capital, and that's what people knew us for in the 90s.
That's what I wanted to bring up, is actually not even in the 90s. As someone, I've only lived in Indiana the past 5 years, and I think growing up, anytime I ever heard about it, it wasn't, Michael Jackson's hometown or anything from anywhere else. It's, that's the murder capital of the world.
Right. Why would you go there? It's the murder capital.
Exactly.
And we have an image problem, and it's hard. And that's why I said you can spend all the money you want, you can have all the projects you want, but until we shake that image problem where an international company says, hey, this place looks great on paper and it's Gary, Indiana, okay, we'll make the gamble. Until we can get our image under control, we're not going to go.
Well, and let me tie that into the question I asked before the break: is it worth it? The amount of government money that would need to be infused into some of these communities. The question is it worth it? Even when you start getting into public-private partnerships, some of these folks that have all of this money, when you look at all of the success from 8094 South in Lake County. Look at all of the unbridled, unmitigated success south of 894 in Lake County. If you were going to invest your money, where would you go? And the problem is, if you're looking at some of these northern cities, you're fighting against an image problem. You're fighting against a even if there was the end of the culture of corruption was today. It's no more. Forget about it. It's in the past. That was yesterday. Today's moving forward. How do you then right that ship? And
you have to get some wins under your belt. But how do you do that? Where's the first?
How do you do that? And again, is it worth it?
So one of the things that's interesting about this county, and I know, Chris, you've seen this going to Crown Point, is that as long as there's land available, even now they've gone south of Crown Point. They just built this giant refrigerator down in Lowell to store frozen food or whatever. As long as you have that available farmland where I've got a clean slate to build my warehouse on, I'm going to choose that over who knows what I'm going to find trying to build a factory, on top of an old factory in Gary or East Chicago.
And that's a problem that a lot of places throughout the entire country see, But when you're talking about the image problem, Detroit has always had that image problem. I grew up living there for a short time in my childhood, and then we moved to other states while I was, continuing to grow up. And when I was in southern Indiana, people would ask me where I'm from. Oh, I'm from Detroit. and they would just drop their jaw, and they would just ask me the dumbest questions ever. But really, I was in a suburb outside of Detroit, and everything was fine, just like what you guys are talking about with South Lake County and Gary. So
I think you just hit on the solution. RoboCop.
RoboCop.
We need RoboCops and Ed 209s. Okay, let's take some calls. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Dave from Gary.
Hey, Dave. Hey,
Good
thanks
morning.
for being a good steward. I heard that you guys spent quite a bit of time in Gary this weekend, so I appreciate. I connected you guys, and you were a great host as I expected, so I appreciate it. But what are your thoughts?
Absolutely, I enjoyed Chris's time and John's as well. John was just a wealth of knowledge. He's been there for such a long time, and a multi-business owner and real estate owner. So John was a wealth of knowledge, and I even learned something from him. So yeah, it was a great adventure. And I just want to correct a mischaracterization, which I expect out of Walt. And that always was the saying, as goes Gary, the rest of the county. That has nothing to do with economics. That has to do with sheer voting, right? And Gary has always been traditionally, they've had a big turnout when it comes to voting, and that is dwindling. Hammond has the greater population than Gary. So it was just I think it was just a matter of, it wasn't if, it was when it was going to happen. Gary's still losing 1,000 people a year, and the great thing I like about Chris is he comes with accurate, hard facts.
Did a lot of homework before he came. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, like him or not, he comes with the hard, true facts. And and if you can't deal with it, then maybe you need to get out of the kitchen, right? Because what's the old saying? How do you solve a problem? You have to first identify you have one. 2015, we had 77,000 people. Now, 10 years later, we have 66,000. Wow. Let's do some basic second-grade math. We're losing 1,000 people a year. They're not moving away. They're dying.
So,
our seniors...
Well, let's talk about this real quick. So a lot of people, what happens in Gary is a senior passes away. They lived there their whole life. Why would I leave? They pass away. Their kids can't sell their house. So they try to sell it for a year or two. Some people literally give the houses away. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes, and then we have, at one point you had thousands of abandoned structures for that very reason. People would just sort of walk away from their house and go, it's not worth selling. I'm going to walk away.
It's most definitely a pride and a legacy and a cultural thing that one of the greatest gifts in that community is, and Detroit as well, is to be able to extend the legacy of the family and give the home to the child or give the home to the grandchild. They don't want it, or the grandchildren or the children are not there. So that's when, you're absolutely right, Chuck, that's when they fall into ruin. But I mentioned to Chris, I'm really hoping when I get some final figures at the end of this year that the bleeding has stopped. Right, the exodus and the people are dying that have at least slowed down.
People like yourself moving to Miller is definitely part of that story, because you have sort of the tale of two cities. You have Gary and then you have Miller. And obviously, like this weekend, you had an air show, like Jim was saying, well attended, lots of people came, and like Bob and I were talking about the rail cats and stuff like that. This idea that, to me, I look at it as, if Gary is growing, if Gary brings in business, that's an opportunity for my kids, my son who's going to be looking for work someday. That's another opportunity for him to get a good job if manufacturing comes back or whatever.
The Miller area skews the figures a little bit, right? And what I'm seeing, and we pretty much hit all four corners of the city. There's clusters of redevelopment.
Right.
There's on one block. There's five rehab homes sold, and then you go to another neighborhood. You go to Tolliston. There's 5 new homes that have been redone and sold. We went through Beckman School. We went through that property, and Chris, I absolutely just love your drone. The footage you shoot with that thing is just absolutely amazing. And you actually were high enough so you could bring up, looking at it, you couldn't tell it was there, but the old track at Beckman School. Now that's going to be leveled and a multi-use development put there.
I'm surprised they let him do that. Every once in a while, there's like fighter jets flying right by your drone. Like,
Well, he kept it under the legal height, so the legal altitude.
Right, and I did that before the Jets were doing their practice runs, but yeah.
Exactly. So Gary is in the situation that the city is in. it's still dire to a certain extent. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything, right? But I'm hoping for the bleeding to stop, and we're starting to slowly see it. And I told Chris, it took 50 years for Gary to get where it is. It's probably going to take 25 to 30 to really get out of it. And you guys mentioned earlier about land. Not everyone's going to Lowell, right? There's a lot of really good, I mean, that's the one thing we do. We're land heavy in Gary. But the problem is we're 52 square miles. We bring in enough tax revenue to sustain about 20 square miles.
Well, my point,
and 80% of that goes to police and fire.
If I'm trying to locate and I have either a pristine farm field or I have a land. I mean, even remember what happened when they were building the airport. What did they have to do? They had to mitigate all of the land around the airport. And, I mean, that's time and money to mitigate. Sure. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying is, do I want to buy land that potentially needs to be mitigated, or I can just buy farmland and start digging tomorrow? And that's one of the things. As long as I have that available farmland, I'm going to probably choose that over taking the risk of who knows what I'm going to dig up in Gary.
It's dollars and cents.
Right.
If you could get that property that's already been remediated, right? The Lehigh concrete plant. That was already completely cleaned up, and that's where the new FedEx terminal is going. So it comes down, when big business comes in, the path of least resistance would be the pristine cornfield, but you're going to pay a premium for that.
Sure.
Or do you want to come to Gary and get a massive tax abatement, and you're going to get land for pennies on the dollar? And I can't see any company coming in and doing core samples and say, oh, yeah, this ground is full of cadmium, let's buy it. I just don't see that happening. Right. IDEM will come in, and, I mean, there's a process of that happening. But, I mean, Gary's open for business, and it would just have to, it's probably, I'm 62. It might happen in my lifetime. In Miller, and the first district, is not the be-all, end-all for the city of Gary. There's Morningside, there's a lot of nicer sections that people can see the opportunity. The first new home going up in Etna, right, in 55 years, or building a new home there, and not just rehabbing. So, again, it's one of those things. It's a trust and verify. It's cautiously optimistic. Use your enthusiasm, right? I mean, but you're always going to have people like Walls just keep beating it down, and they have the solution, right? Just Richard J. Daley.
Okay, well, hey, Gary, Dave, we're losing you. We're losing Dave. So go ahead and he can call. Well, we can chat later, but. So he was basically talking about that old mentality, people like Walt from that generation that remember what it used to be, and they basically say, why, I mean, kind of like a why bother? And I think that's kind of what, like Bob was saying, is like that investment would go a lot further somewhere else, because again, you don't have to start your day with $100 million mitigation.
Well, I'm not saying that it, my question was almost rhetorical. I mean, to have all of that infrastructure there, you're not starting from square zero,
right.
From square one. And so there's a lot of potential up there. But I do think we need to be asking that question is, as soon as we can get some clear and consistent and concise answers on why it's worth it, I think that is then the spark of
even that
true
becomes
redevelopment.
That becomes an interesting question. I was joking earlier about TIFs, this idea of, if you give it away, are you really gaining anything? Because the other aspect to it is, if you bring in new business, if you bring in, even if you bring in new residential, but there's so many tax abatements, so now it's like, well, I got to hire more firemen and police, but I'm getting new tax revenue for 20 years. Now you've made things, and that's going back to the train, like these super TIFs, where it's like, hey, I'm bringing stuff in, but I need, even the idea, every time you bring in a box store, that's one more police officer, or one more, more ambulance calls and more theft calls at your Walmart. It's like, hey, we're going to bring in this business, which is great, but they're not paying taxes for 20 years. So now, like, how do you manage? How much of that can you manage as well?
Well, Dave, who just called in, Dave Gearman, was one of the people I spent a lot of time with this weekend going through the city. He was showing me a lot of things. And one thing I'll say is that it would really help Gary if more people like Dave Gearman were around,
right,
that really cared about the city, really wanted to see it come back, had a lot of pride in the city. It takes a community to come back too, right? And that's one thing I was saying about Detroit, is that even people who live out in the suburbs want to see downtown Detroit come back, want to see the city come back, all the neighborhoods come back. And so there's a large interest in a metro area of about 4.5 million people. So that's a lot of people that can come and help support business in downtown Detroit, right? That's a lot of people who want to see the city come back. So there needs to be a large interest around the community, and that would come from the surrounding communities in Lake County. And I think if there is a way that everyone could work together and, really put effort into supporting businesses in Gary and turning the reputation around, it would take a long time for that to happen, but it also needs to come from the city leadership, like what you guys are saying with the red tape. The city's leadership, they need to make that easier for that to happen, right?
Well, there's also a discussion about, so like in Dave's case, he's older, doesn't have to worry about schooling. Somebody like Bob or I, that would be my biggest question. Like, I'd love to
and that is a very good question.
Move to Miller and live on the beach, but where's my kid going to go to school, and are they going to be safe doing it? So, okay, so let's do this. Let's take another break. We're going to do another segment with Chris Harden. Bob Starkey's here. Chuck Pullen, Summer of Chuck 2, The Electric Boogaloo on WJOB. Hey, it's 8:52 in the region. Chuck Pullen, Chris Harden, Bob Starkey. We are here for a few more minutes. So I'm getting profanity-laden text messages saying, take my phone calls. So we already know who that's going to be. So we got lit up phone lines. Let's take some calls. Good morning, caller in the air.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just want to let you know that my wife and I have owned commercial property for the past 50 years, and we just sold our last property in Illinois. Our biggest loss we ever took was a commercial property we built as a new building in Harvey, and we lost $250,000 on that one.
So can I, real quick, though, we were just talking about this over the break. I was talking about Indiana has a 1, 2, 3 constitutionally mandated tax cap. So if you turn me up, did you just adjust something? Turn me back up. Okay, so here in Indiana, if you're a commercial business, you have a constitutionally mandated 3%. If you go to a place, and I thought it was Harvey, they have like an 18% commercial tax rate. Is that accurate?
Yes. In fact, our building, after we sold it, now we only got $250,000 for it, okay? And, well, actually not even that, because you have to give the new owner a year's worth of property taxes, which were around $35,000 at the time.
Wow.
So we got about $230,000 on a building that cost us well over $400,000 to construct. And you know what? Illinois is in a debt spiral. Anybody can see that. And you got a bad governor, you got a bad mayor in Chicago. But the one thing that I have learned over the years is every city, every town should have an incubator building, because you need young people and new businesses. But to do that, they can't afford these market rate rents. They need cheap rent. And if you look at Griffith, that's my prime example. Griffith had a lot of vacant storefronts, okay? And the landlords in Griffith were smart enough to realize, hey, you know what? Instead of me sitting on this thing empty, let me rent it to this guy who wants to put in a coffee shop for $500 a month rent.
Right.
And you know what? It flourished. And that's what you need. Government does not understand that. Okay.
Well, this is what you mentioned, though. Not only incubator, I would love to have somebody somewhere that is a councilman in a little town somewhere where they have classes, and you literally can go, just like they have CPR classes, here's all the stuff, here's all the things that you're going to have to do, here's how to get an occupancy permit, here's how this works. Like, you want to start a small business, here's how this works, and here's my number. Here's my number. Here's how this works. Here's my number. We'll help you along the way. We won't just show up at the ribbon cutting. We'll help you along the way.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And you know what? The only people
somewhere should do that.
That can solve this, Gary, is going to be the artists. You got to bring the art colony, because they'll put up with just about anything.
Right, and I mentioned that in Detroit. You basically, they had artists buying houses for $1. They bought entire neighborhoods and rehabbed them, and that was a great. Yeah. And you talk about, like Chris was talking about, these anchors, or even like Dave was talking about new buildings here and there. That's an entire neighborhood that would get bought up, and that's your anchor. That's your starting point, and you grow from there.
Absolutely. And you know what? I don't know. I mean, it's sad. It really is sad. Another thing that we learned is that the smart people, when they saw what was happening in the towns like Harvey and Dixmoor and Hazelcrest, they left right away. And a lot of them didn't even leave Illinois. They went to Will County. In fact, we got a letter at our building, because it was a 2-unit that we had built, and our tenant, who was a Chicago Tribune, by the way, got a letter from a Will County executive saying, hey, you know what? For what you're paying in taxes over there, because that's part of the lease, you can come over here and you can pay for a brand new building. I said, look at this. How do you compete with this? You can't.
My question for you, if you know the answer to this, so it would be an 18% tax rate for a business in Harvey. What would that be for a community in Will County?
Half that, at least, right? I mean,
here's the thing. Cook County is the only county in the state of Illinois that taxes commercial properties differently than houses, okay? So in Will County, everybody's assessed at a 33% market value rate, whereas in Cook County, your business could be 20% or 25%, depending on your classification, while your house is only assessed at 10%. But then here comes the kicker. Because that 10% assessment on houses does not provide enough money, they come up with the multiplier. And what does the multiplier do? It triples your assessment. Now, it doesn't matter if you got a house or you got a commercial building or industrial building. It triples your assessment. Now, how are you gonna fix that?
Right. Well, even silly things like I just learned recently that in Chicago they don't have water meters. There is absolutely no. Why would you even you basically just build a fountain on your front porch and just run the hose? Why would you even think about why would anybody save water if they're just paying a flat rate? You know what I mean? Silly things like that. Where it's what a tax on the system that is.
It used to be if you were in city limits, you didn't pay for water. That was part of your infrastructure that you got with your property taxes. The water was free.
So again, you can literally just run your sprinkler 24/7 and there was no consequences, right? I mean, how crazy is that?
Well, you have Lake Michigan, but you look at this now, and I'll let you guys go, but I'm just say this, we sold our last commercial property in Illinois. We're selling our house in Dyer. We're moving to Wheat Hill, Indiana, and I got one more startup left in me. I'm 73 years old, and it's going to be in Hammond. I like what Mayor McDermott has done in Hammond. He's made some big bets. He's made a lot of mistakes, but you know what? Overall, I think Hammond's going to have a bright future. I really do. Thanks.
Well,
guys.
and that was one of the things that Chris talked about, and I said, he filmed it about a year ago. If you have a few minutes today, why don't you drive through downtown Hammond? It's a year later. It looks just
See the difference.
There is no difference.
There's
Sorry.
no difference. Oh, okay.
There's a train. I mean, that's about it. But that's the thing is what is the time frame? Dave talked about Gary might be a 20-year project. Hammond looks just like you left it a year ago. There really hasn't been that development, and maybe it will come. I don't know what the catalyst is going to be, but that's sort of the thing is what is maybe the train, maybe the transformational train when they finally get done with that will be the catalyst. I don't know. We have more callers. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, what's the website Chris has for the drone stuff?
The website, I have a YouTube channel, so it's
what is that?
It's Chris Harden. So it's Harden, Chris Harden, and that's my YouTube channel.
Oh, just your name. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the YouTubers work. They don't have websites anymore. They have a YouTube page. So yeah,
easy there, Johnny Tech.
Just saying, I don't TikTok either. I mean, I'm a boomer like you. So Chris Harden on YouTube.
Okay, great. So I went to the air show yesterday, and I went there hours before and spent hours afterward riding around through Gary just for a little joyriding. And I got to tell you, my jaw hit the ground at the number of abandoned things.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Still there, untouched. Did Dave from Lily White Miller Beach, did he take you on any tour of any place where you might have thought of, garnishing your weapon a few times?
Well, we saw plenty of abandoned things. He wasn't sugarcoating things. We saw Horace Mann High School.
Did you see the nice group of homeless folks that got assembled on a few parts of the city there?
Did we see what again?
See any a nice assemblage of people who basically abandon life and are just laying on the side of the road? The homeless just hanging out, doing nothing. You see any big groups of that?
Yeah, I didn't see big groups, but I saw some people here and there. Yeah.
Because the problem, you criticize these people to move. Not you. I'm talking about your
Sure.
buddy Lily White Dave. Criticizing people who want to move down to a cornfield in Lowell, and yet there's not a proliferation of drug use or weapons or murders or robberies or pistol whippings. And you can send your kid out the door and close the door and turn your back and they can walk to school and they got there. That doesn't happen up there. There's a morality problem. There is a problem with responsibility. Because when you have four people in a row running the food kitchen in the township up there, and they all got caught thieving, every single one of them. And they get like a ankle bracelet, and they go back home, and that's the end of it. And you don't think anything of it. And then when you get kids
and then
murdering
their nephew
kids,
gets elected or something like that to
take over. The kids murder kids. The kids rob the gas stations. The gas stations are supposed to close for 18 hours a day, so they get run out of business. And nobody gets. There's no responsibility when a local politician walks off with 2,000 laptops and 5,000 iWatches. We go, what happens? Or when the former mayor is housing a woman, is financing a woman who's going through bankruptcy and is told you can't give her money, you can't give her your American Express card, and she's just doing just fine and dandy. And now we got our current administration involved allegedly in a bunch of employment scams that go back and forth, and nothing changes. And when you talk about Miller Beach and an artist community, all you have to do is come right down 20 to Lake Street. You go right past McDonald's. There's a liquor store, and then you look to the left. And what does it literally say, which caught my eye yesterday? It says something about, like, artscape. And what is it? It's abandoned covered with weeds. So don't talk about anybody coming in there. And any of this new building stuff, it's either people with money from Illinois or it's government finance.
Okay.
He just cheered one house going up in Etna.
We got to go. I got to take more calls.
HUD house.
Go ahead. Hey, okay. I appreciate the call. It's 9:02 in the
Chuck,
region.
one more thing. One more thing.
One more
Chuck.
thing. Hang on. You're listening to AM 1230, 104.7 FM, beautiful Hammond, Indiana. Go ahead.
You know I love you dearly, and if you called me for help, I would, or said, hey, I need something at the laundromat, I'd do it. Do me a favor, bro. Stop drinking what is in that cup, dude. Your daughter's not going to have a dad in 5 years.
I'm leaning back in the chair, to be fair.
Dropping the hammer.
Don't.
This
Please, bro.
hey, we still got to go.
We'll do your daughter's as beautiful as could be. She needs her dad when she's
okay. Thank you for that. I've been called fat twice today. Let's do the Mad Mac triathlon. I'll still beat you in a 100-meter dash. Okay, you hung up on him. Good. You hung up on him. He challenged me to a go-kart race. We still got to do that, and then let's do 100. I know he can ride a bike, but I can still run faster than him. Okay, we have any more callers? Let's take the last caller. Good morning, caller. You're in the air.
Chuck, I love the region more than most, right? But can we speak about the big elephant in the room when it comes to the success of Gary?
Bob, I think he's talking about you, the big elephant in the room.
The big elephant, that's me. Thanks for calling.
That's three times today.
Yeah, the only reason we see an influx here in Indiana is due to the mass refugee migration from Illinois that is dwindling because nobody wants to buy in Illinois anymore, so they can't get over here. That's coming to a halt, all you real estate wet dream junkies. Look, they are going more. Isn't the city of Chicago in a $1.5 billion deficit? And Mayor Brand?
No, it's $1.6 billion to be fair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But, he had a press conference last week where he said, I've got no good news. It's bad. I'm going to take out a high-interest loan. He's basically taking out a payday loan on the city because that's going to go well. That's where they're at. And they're probably not going to pass a budget by December and any number of other things. It is a death spiral, and there's no light at the end of that tunnel. They're out of things to tax.
That's what built this part of the country too. Okay, the only thing that's actually working here for us at the moment is because we have an incredible transportation of freight and rail infrastructure. I mean, we have one of the only
freight rail to be straight.
In Bedford Park, they have what's called the hump. And they move more freight through there than basically anywhere in the world except Australia. But if that stops, why would anybody want to live here? I mean, it's a great place, but what demand are we creating that people are going to want to stay? And that's really the question nobody's asking. We're hosed on steel. That's over. Steel's going to get replaced with plastics and carbons and everything else that's not going to
graphene.
It's not going to be
graphene.
Graphene. Right, exactly. So when the police aren't even reporting crime, I mean, my friend lives in a $1.5 million place in Bucktown. Right, lived there for 20 years. He got held up, his entire family robbed by 4 guys. They didn't even have masks on. He said, I can identify each one of these. And you know what the cops told him? We're not going to report it because the crime's been so bad in Bucktown that we don't want to skew the numbers any worse than they are.
Yeah, and actually they're going after the DC chief for that. I mean, basically just telling people, no, we're not going to take this report because
it's insanity.
Yeah, right. So again, you basically don't get any sort of, there's no repercussions for being held up because government wants to look good.
And they want our tax. And I'm sorry, that's the biggest tax is government. And until we actually say, you know what? No. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. Come from my property. It's not going to be worth anything anyway.
Right. Well, that's the reason why a lot of people are stuck in Illinois is because they would take such a bath on their property they can't afford to move here.
Right. Oh, hey, one more thing before I go. Check out the Chat Control Act that's going in place in Europe right now. And I'm telling you, folks, if you don't watch what happens over there, it all comes over here because we love to kiss Europe's ass. We love to think that they're much more civilized than us. They're going to make sure that when you and I are chatting or we send a message to each other, even if we want to use an encrypted platform, that is not encrypted until it goes to the government first on your phone because they're going to force Google and Apple to do the haptic feedback on your keyboard. Yeah,
fantastic.
That's a good one. Yeah, I think we got problems with Gary. Wow. All right, you guys, great show today.
Thanks for all the good news there. I'm going to go a couple more minutes if we just so we can finish this segment because nobody's here, right? So, okay, so Bob, we do need to talk about the train.
I would love to talk
So,
about
Chris,
the
if
train.
you don't mind, I'm going to digress for a moment to talk about the train because we have some huge train news. So now, Chris, you know about this from going through Hammond. One of the big projects that we've been working on is this train. So 8 miles of new track. We're adding a new spur to the existing passenger line. It went from $500 million to $1 billion to add 8 miles of track on an existing right-of-way. And so it is virtually finished. They waited. I think somebody told them, hey, Chuck's going on vacation. So they waited till I went on vacation. Like, we can run trains because Chuck won't be here. So they were running trains a couple weeks ago. They're at that point where it is so far done. I mean, the signals are running. Crossings are working. They're running test trains. They're checking clearances. The train is effectively done. But there is a problem. They have discovered, and we broke this here on the radio a few weeks ago, that there is a stray voltage issue on the line.
He just runs up and down the track.
What?
Mr. Stray Voltage.
Mr. Stray Voltage.
Just run up and down.
So we have a stray voltage issue, which is affecting adjacent utilities. I've been talking to every railroader, every electrical engineer I know. Everybody's like, I have no idea what that means, but essentially it means that when you put power into the ground, as it turns out, it doesn't always go where you want it to go. Just like water, it finds its way to different things. So as of now, what I am hearing as a solution to this problem is that the railroad, which is now 99% complete, will have to be, well, either one of two things will happen. Either they will be replacing every single tie on this 8 miles of track. I had originally heard possibly with concrete. Because they should have built it concrete to begin with. That's a whole other story. They're going to replace, and I was there this morning. If you go down Manor Drive, they're out there right now. As of right now, I am seeing that they are replacing every other tie for 8 miles. So you have a train that's 99% completed, ready to go. They said, oh, by the way, we have this stray voltage issue. We're now pushing the launch of this track, this new service, back at least by 6 months or so. And they are replacing every other tie. And I don't know exactly. And again, we'd love to have somebody from the railroad on to explain. They're doing grounding straps. They're doing ground rods, Faraday cages. I don't know. But now that you have a completed brand new train that's never even seen a single train other than a test train, they're going to go back and replace every other tie on this line. And you can see it for yourself down on Manor Drive or up on Lyman or something like that. So again, just such a frustrating thing to see a new railroad being torn up before it even sees a single passenger because of something that was missed in engineering. So
now I will say the not to speak to the issue, but the device that they use to switch out those rail ties is actually pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
It's just one device, kind of. It moves. It scoops the gravel out of the way. Another arm comes in, kind of vibes out the old tie. They put the new tie in, put the gravel, and they move on to the next one.
What was that thing called? The thing for weeds. It's kind of like a giant vibrating weed weasel or whatever that thing was called.
I thought
Weasel
we were
whacker or
talking about
whatever.
the WNBA.
It was like one of the, we can't even talk about. I wanted to talk about that. I'm like, I'm not even going to touch it. They're putting up nets to solve that problem. But if you want to make a quick $10,000, bet on taking a purple you-know-what to a game on a Friday. Bet $10,000, throw a purple thing on the court, and you can make $100,000. But that's another story. Poly market. Chris Harden, any final thoughts?
No,
no, not now.
Not now. Okay, let's take the last call before your final thoughts. One last caller, and then we're going to wrap up. Caller, good morning.
I don't often agree with who's it, Mad Mac. But
nobody agrees with Mad Mac. But anyway, go ahead.
I agree with him 100% as it relates to Gary, and nothing has changed, and nothing will change. And I have a prediction: by next Lake County Fair season next year in August, you will see an 18 by 24 poster of Fast Eddie Melton's face and Sweaty Mike Suggs will be added to the Republican Party cubicle in the industrial building. Those guys are as corrupt as the day is long, and they will both go down, and both of their faces will be plastered on the wall in the industrial building by next year.
Okay, I don't want to get sued, so I'll just say thanks for that. I don't want to get my name. Okay, so again, Chris, that's the mentality, is that we've sent dozens of people to jail, and we're going to keep sending people to jail. And like I joked, every time we build something, we send a couple people to jail, and that's what most people from the region that have lived here their whole life, that's their response. That's their opinion. That's how their reaction to anything that's going on in the region is: who's going to go to jail? What's it going to cost us? How many times are we going to tear up those tracks?
The trust is broken because of all the things that have happened, it seems like.
Okay, so final thoughts.
I mean, Gary, it's what I thought it would be. Everything that I saw, there's going to be some nice parts of town, but there's a whole lot of bad parts of town. It's how it goes with cities like Gary, cities like Detroit. I had a lot of comparisons with Flint because Flint is more similar in size to Gary than Detroit is. I know Detroit's the most popular comparison for a lot of people, but Flint was completely dependent on General Motors, just like how Gary was on steel.
Right.
And I mean, it's sad when you go around and look, but I will say that Flint has a much better downtown area than Gary does. I don't think I've come across a city that has as bad of a downtown as Gary has. And I think that if it's going to come back, I'm not saying it will, but it absolutely can. It's just a matter of if things are going to change or not. Sounds like they have a lot of work to do to rebuild the trust with the public for that to happen. That's part of the reputation that they need to turn around. And really, they just need to find some momentum to build up the downtown area and make it a destination for people to want to go and check out, because right now there's nothing there.
How do people find you?
My name, Chris Harden, on YouTube. Just do a search and my channel will pop up, and that's pretty much it.
You're not going to make us wait a year for these videos, are you?
I'm going to try to have them out, I would say, November, December. That's what I'm aiming for.
Send me a message. We'll mention it on the air if we're around, or somebody will put it out. We'll throw some highlights up there and stuff like that so everybody can check it out so they know to see what an outsider thinks of the region. Bob?
Well, we were called fat 3 times today. And that...
Chris, you're in fine shape, by the way.
Yeah,
you don't belong on
these radio callers are a lot like the commenters on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of that. No. Chuck, as always, thanks for having me on.
Thanks. We're going to do this probably till the end of the month or whenever Jim feels like he wants to get back on the radio. So we'll be here for a few more weeks. Joe, anything?
No, I would just say that they pretty much are the commenters. Those are exactly the type of people
if
that
they knew how to. They don't know how to use YouTube.
If
so
they knew how to comment on
radio,
YouTube, they would. And
you can do that now on our YouTubes.
Yep, you can.
As we're streaming out on the interwebs
at WJOB 1230 on YouTube.
There is a comment section that you can leave your thoughts.
Don't encourage them. We used to have a live chat during the radio show, which was both hilarious and just the worst thing you can possibly do is be on the radio while reading people talking about how fat and ugly you are in real time. But, again.
But enough about the Summer of Chuck 2.
1. Okay, well, thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate it. Chris, thanks so much for coming by.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad it worked out that you got to spend some time in Gary and meet some real people of Gary. We'll do it again next Monday on the Summer of Chuck 2, the Electric Boogaloo on WJOB.